This is Korea's infamous VIP prison, a place equipped with every imaginable luxury: game consoles, pizza deliveries, basketball courts, plush sofas, a gigantic movie screen, and even a fully stocked bar. To avoid the prying eyes of the media, the facility is buried 50 meters underground. Only the ultra-rich reside within its walls. To them, Chang-ho is nothing but a loud-mouthed, two-bit lawyer, insignificant as an ant. Little do they know, their empire of wealth is about to be completely overturned by this very ant. Chang-ho is not only a lawyer with a dismal 10% success rate, but also henpecked by his wife. However, a single phone call from the mayor sets in motion his dramatic transformation. The mayor gets straight to the point upon meeting Chang-ho. 3 of his friends were involved in a recent accident, but a dead body was unexpectedly discovered in the trunk of their car. These friends are influential figures, and their legal team has already crafted a narrative for their defense. All they need now is a docile, incompetent lawyer to take the fall after they inevitably win the case and silence any remaining dissent. They don't need a lawyer, they need a scapegoat, someone to absorb the public shame. Chang-ho starts to leave, but the mayor throws him a curveball. The car's black box went missing after the accident, and the mayor desperately needs Chang-ho to find it and uncover the truth. He wants Chang-ho to play double agent, to pretend to work for them. Perhaps driven by a sense of justice, or perhaps by the allure of money, Chang-ho accepts the mayor's proposition. Meanwhile, the mayor reels in his first catch of the evening. Upon arriving at the VIP prison, Chang-ho is met with nothing but derision from the 3 inmates. He receives the pre-written legal strategy and, by feigning indifference and not immediately examining it, successfully convinces them of his supposed incompetence. Suddenly, the mayor calls, informing them that someone claiming to be a witness has come forward. This witness happens to be a friend of Chang-ho's, whom he had asked to pose as such before entering the prison. Indeed, Chang-ho is not as foolish as he appears. He has his own game plan. Before leaving the meeting, he casually discards his milk tea cup in the trash. Once outside, he quickly puts on an earpiece. He had planted a listening device in the cup. With this simple maneuver, he easily pinpoints the location of the black box. Cut to Chang-ho and the mayor visiting Dr. Han's wife. Leveraging his legal knowledge, Chang-ho uses intimidation and veiled threats to break down the woman's defenses, persuading her to hand over the black box. Just as she's about to retrieve it, the mayor receives an urgent phone call. Chang-ho seizes the opportunity to ask the woman about a person mentioned in a recording who ordered the killing. Who is this person? The mayor returns just as the woman is about to answer, prompting her to quickly name someone else, Kong Jae-hoon. The mayor explains that Kong Jae-hoon is the chairman of a powerful conglomerate, and the 3 imprisoned men are his right-hand men. This explains the urgent meeting he must attend. He instructs Chang-ho to deliver the black box to him once he has it. Thus, the crucial piece of evidence for Chang-ho's counterattack falls into his hands. As the woman leaves, she utters a warning that plants the first seed of doubt in his mind. Be careful. This case could hurt you very badly. After reviewing the dashcam footage, Chang-ho finally understands the true value of the USB drive. Greed overwhelms his reason, and he decides to embrace the adage, "A man dies for wealth." The next day, he takes the USB to Kong Jae-hoon's mansion, feigning composure as he attempts to extort 3 billion won. However, the chairman remains unfazed, even dismissing Chang-ho as delusional, and impatiently has him thrown out. Humiliated yet again, Chang-ho becomes enraged and resolves to escalate the situation. He decides to hand the USB over to the prosecutor. Unexpectedly, the mayor calls, demanding the USB. Chang-ho doesn't hide his intentions, telling him he plans to give it to the prosecution. The mayor, surprisingly, doesn't try to stop him. What Chang-ho doesn't see is the murderous glint in the mayor's eyes. That night, after accepting a complimentary drink, Chang-ho's pupils dilate. The world explodes into vibrant streaks of color as he crashes his car into 3 other vehicles, flipping through the air before landing with a devastating crunch. The car is mangled. Logically, he should be dead. But his habit of wearing a seatbelt saves his life, allowing him to utter a bitter curse. Miraculously, Chang-ho survives the horrific crash. But this isn't luck, it's a cruel twist of fate. The events that follow will make him regret clinging to life. Perhaps he used up all his good fortune meeting his wife. because everything he attempts now fails, especially at crucial moments. Even at pole vaulting, his best sport, the pole snaps at the critical juncture. Yet, seeing his wife's smile makes even his worst luck seem worthwhile. Let's break up. Thankfully, it's just a dream. Soon. However, he'll wish he had initiated the divorce. Facing his wife's loving concern, the first words out of his mouth are, "Where's my phone? Your car is totaled, and you're worried about your phone?" But the matter is urgent, so he has her call his number. Unbeknownst to them, a mysterious figure ignores the ringing phone, taking only the USB from the glove compartment. The car and the phone are then fed into a crusher, destroying any remaining evidence. As Chang Ho gets out of bed, a police squad bursts in, arresting him for drug possession. The storm has arrived. Before being taken away, his wife urges him, "No matter what, don't give up hope. Live for me." Her words jolt Chang Ho back to reality. He pieces together recent events and concludes that Kong Jae-hoon is behind this. Feigning cooperation, he claims he wants to confess everything, hoping to see the mayor. To his dismay, the mayor is unconcerned with his fate, caring only about the Us's whereabouts. Upon learning that Chang Ho lost the USB, the mayor abandons him without a second thought. With his only potential savior gone, Chang Ho is sent to the infamous prison. He feels no fear, believing a drug charge carries a maximum sentence of 3 months. However, a larger conspiracy is unfolding outside. As Chang Ho's father-in-law locks up his law office, a group armed with power saws and hammers arrives. Their target, Chang Ho's firm. He tries to intervene, but they have a warrant and proceed to demolish the office, ignoring his protests. Their objective is precise, the wall behind a cabinet. With a few swings, they unearth not only gold bars but also weapons and a large stash of heroin. Then, they begin cutting into the ceiling. On the other side of the bars, life inside for Chang Ho was far from easy. Barely processed into the prison, he was cornered by 3 henchmen working for the conglomerate. They even summoned the prison's top dog. His crew were all ruthless individuals, so their purpose wasn't simply to rough Chang Ho up. At this point, Chang Ho still clung to a shred of naivete. He assumed that if he died, they'd be in serious trouble. But the long-haired thug shattered his illusion with a cold dose of reality. This was the one place in South Korea beyond the reach of the law. You think killing a convict like you will change anything here? With that, the last flicker of hope within Chang Ho was extinguished. Desperate, he began to plead, but it was too late. Just then, a prison guard intervened, saving his life. Those who rescued him couldn't have imagined that this act would be their biggest regret. The conglomerate was determined to have Chang Ho dead. Why save him? It turned out a charity gala was being held that day. Conglomerate chairman Kong Jae-hoon and the mayor were both in attendance. Their conversation, however, revealed a simmering animosity beneath a veneer of politeness. Kong Jae-hoon looked down on the mayor's humble origins. The mayor, in turn, mocked him for being swindled out of hundreds of billions of won by the mysterious con artist known as Big Mouth. Suddenly, a bombshell news report flashed across the television screens. Not only did it announce Chang Ho's arrest for drug use, identifying him as the infamous Big Mouth, but it also claimed that a portion of the stolen money had been recovered from his office. The bulk of it, however, remained missing. It was to recover the missing billions that Kong Jae-hoon had orchestrated Chang Ho's rescue and leaked the news. However, the expressions on Kong Jae-hoon and the mayor's faces made it clear that neither of them was behind Chang Ho's framing. So who was? Or could Chang Ho actually be the boastful Big Mouth after all? Meanwhile, Mai Ho, Chang Ho's wife, arrived at the prison with a lawyer. To their dismay, the guards refused them visitation, claiming Chang Ho had declined. Left with no other recourse, and wanting to bolster Chang Ho's spirits, Mai Ho stood before the press, expressing her unwavering support and belief in her husband through the camera lens. Inside, Chang Ho watched the news report. Seeing his wife bravely facing the onslaught of the media alone, he broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. But his heartbreak was short-lived. His inherent weakness resurfaced, and he chose to run. Just like years ago, when he had suggested breaking up with Mai Ho after failing the medical licensing exam twice. Back then, Mai Ho had pulled out her savings book and urged him to study law instead. Seeing her worn-out shoes, Chang Ho had still insisted on ending things. But my Ho had countered, "If you don't want to spend your girlfriend's money, then let's get married." Finally, overwhelmed by my Ho's fierce determination, they had stayed together. But now, he was putting her through so much pain again. Suddenly, Chang Ho remembered he had a life insurance policy. Ignoring his wife's pleas, he penned a suicide note and prepared to end it all. Just then, an older inmate intervened. "Don't even think about it. If you fail, you'll spend the rest of your life crippled. Why can't I even decide how I die? How could my luck be this bad?" But as he lamented his fate, he noticed the other inmates watching him. An idea sparked in his mind. "This place is full of criminals. Why should I kill myself?" The old man, Chun Sik, was unimpressed. Hearing about the arrival of a new big shot, he had come to make his presence known, to remind everyone who was truly in charge. "You're the infamous Big Mouth." Knowing he was looking for trouble, Chang Ho tried to de-escalate the situation, warning him, "Stay away from me." But as soon as the words left his mouth, Chun Sik slapped him. Chang Ho snapped. "Do I look like a pushover just because I haven't messed with anyone yet?" Chun Sik wouldn't back down. He had his men restrain Chang Ho and proceeded to beat him. Just then, a prison guard arrived, successfully breaking up the fight. But Chang Ho couldn't swallow his pride. The next day at lunch, Chang Ho mixed his rice into his vegetable broth and carried it over to Chun Sik. The old man assumed he was coming to apologize. He was wrong. "Kill me," Chang Ho challenged. Chun Sik's crew immediately rose to their feet, but he chuckled and waved them back down. "That's not enough? I'm begging you, kill me, you bastard." How could Chun Sik endure such humiliation? He snapped his chopsticks, intending to stab Chang Ho. But Chang Ho, already free from the goon's grip, sent the old man flying with a single kick, knocking him unconscious. The scene stunned everyone present, including Chang Ho himself. It turned out the inept lawyer, framed and wrongly imprisoned, was indeed becoming the prison's Big Mouth. And now, he was actively courting death. "I've never hit anyone before. I didn't know my fist was this powerful." With the prison's top dog out of commission, Chang Ho set his sights on a psychotic killer. Rumor had it he'd not only murdered 9 people on the outside, but had also bitten off a fellow inmate's ear in a fit of madness. Even the guards were afraid to cross him. After confirming his target, Chang Ho confronted him during work detail. He threw a burlap sack at the man and began taunting him relentlessly. "What did your mother eat to give birth to a psychopath like you?" The man glared at Chang Ho with murderous intent, which only encouraged Chang Ho to shove him harder, yelling, "If you've killed 9, why not make it an even 10 with me?" Finally, the man snapped, pulling a thin piece of metal from his pocket. This was exactly what Chang Ho wanted. He grabbed the man's hand, placed it against his own throat, and urged him to do it. Just as Chang Ho's plan was about to succeed, the man pulled his hand away. "What? I give you a chance and you don't take it. Don't you want to brag to your mother about a perfect 10? The tension was palpable. Surely, this time he would die. But then, the man collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mother." Chang Ho froze. He shouldn't have mentioned the psychopath's mother. "I'm sorry, just get away from me." Even this hadn't worked. Dying was proving to be remarkably difficult. News of Big Mouth driving the psychopath insane spread like wildfire. Even Chun Sik, seeking revenge, reconsidered his options. When Chang Ho returned to the mess hall, he carried himself with the air of a boss. Yet, there were still those who didn't recognize his newfound status. Despite his change in position, Chang Ho's desire for death hadn't diminished. Learning that the warden had a zero-tolerance policy for escape attempts, shooting escapees on sight, Chang Ho decided to make a break for it that night. After dinner, while the guards were distracted, he slipped into a ventilation shaft, snapped a mop handle, and strutted out onto the main yard. Standing in the middle of the yard, he taunted the guards. "You bastards, come and get me." Instantly, countless guns were trained on him, and guards rushed to surround him. Meanwhile, the warden, alerted to the escape attempt, roared, "Are these idiots crazy? Let a man sleep." Outside, Chang Ho continued to yell, "Shoot me." However, the guards had orders to take him alive. As a result, Chang Ho's punishment was to shovel manure the next day. Even then, he refused to give up. At that moment, Chang Ho's followers charged aggressively into the mess hall with him. Hearing the commotion, a large number of prison guards quickly blocked their path, batons and tasers at the ready. Facing the guards' threats, Chang Ho didn't back down. Instead, he declared, "They want to eat." This confrontation immediately drew everyone's attention. The guards looked defiant. Chang Ho's pretense of authority returned a failed lawyer driven to desperation. Who did they think they were to challenge him? He grabbed a bucket of excrement and dumped it directly onto a guard. Not satisfied, he ordered his men to bring him more buckets, which he proceeded to hurl at the rest of the guards. "Anyone who steps forward gets a mouthful of this," he roared. This act earned him the cheers of the other inmates, further solidifying his position as their boss. Overwhelmed, the guards called for backup. Tasers were aimed directly at Chang Ho. A final warning was issued: "If you cause any more trouble, we will shoot." But Chang Ho showed no fear. Just as he was about to retaliate, the warden arrived with 3 VIP guests. On one side stood Big Mouth, the rumored underground emperor. On the other, the cruel and ruthless warden. The tense standoff between the two instantly captivated the crowd. All eyes were on them. "Put down what's in your hand. Do you really want to die here?" Facing the warden's final warning, Chang Ho remained unflinching. He tossed the bucket to the ground, walked toward the warden, and whispered in his ear, "I warned you, yet you still talk to me like this?" It turned out that the previous night, Chang Ho had attempted a suicidal escape. As the guards prepared to shoot him, the warden recognized him and stopped them. Frustrated that even this attempt at death had failed, Chang Ho collapsed to the ground, sobbing in despair. Afterward, the warden personally met with Chang Ho, probing to see if he truly was Big Mouth, the one who'd supposedly swallowed the chairman's 100 billion won. Chang Ho flatly denied it, refusing to elaborate. But the warden, unsatisfied, threatened his wife and father-in-law, pushing Chang Ho to his limit. "Touch them and you're all dead. Every last one of you, including Kong Jai Hoon and your families." "Are you crazy? Who do you think you are? I am Big Mouth, you idiot." The useless lawyer, wrongly accused of being a conman and thrown in jail, now found his false identity a protective shield. The entire prison worshipped him as a god. But a lie could never be the truth, and exposure was inevitable. The first to challenge him was a one-eyed inmate. Acting on orders from a trio of powerful businessmen, who'd nearly had Chang Ho killed and refused to believe he was the notorious con artist, the one-eyed inmate attacked. The warden, however, was a true believer. Seeing the attack, he immediately ordered the alarm sounded. Alarms blared across the yard. His initial attack thwarted, the one-eyed inmate pressed his advantage. The physically weaker Chang Ho was no match, taking several blows that left him reeling. Jerry tried to intervene but was held back. Other inmates quickly encircled the two, eager to see the extent of the conman's supposed power. However, the one-eyed inmate was strong and armed, forcing Chang Ho to dodge and run. The trio of businessmen witnessed this, further solidifying their suspicions. Finally, the one-eyed inmate kicked Chang Ho to the ground and lunged, weapon aimed at Chang Ho's face. Blood dripped from the hand gripping the weapon, his eyes burning with rage. Just as the attack seemed about to connect, the guards intervened, saving Chang Ho. Everyone present drew their own conclusions. The businessmen realized the warden's influence. The bald inmate, Chun Sik, felt humiliated. Fellow prisoners began to doubt Chang Ho's identity. As Chang Ho rose to his feet, he understood one thing: he hadn't made himself Big Mouth. They had. The next day, the trio of businessmen approached the warden, offering 300 million won to turn a blind eye. They promised a swift, 10-minute operation disguised as an accident, making it easy for the warden to explain to Kong Jai Hoon. Unbeknownst to them, the warden was far more cunning than they anticipated. As weapons were distributed, the warden had a tactical team lie in ambush, medical personnel on standby, and issued precise instructions to the guards. Meanwhile, Chang Ho remained lost in thought, staring into a fire, pondering who was behind his predicament, completely oblivious to the impending danger. The first to detect the situation was No Park, the leader of the attacking group, who yelled from their cell, "Someone, anyone, get over here, Big Mouth, I'm burying you in the trash today." Following his shout, both sides clashed. Despite being unarmed, Chang Ho's larger group initially gained the upper hand. Amidst the chaotic brawl, a mentally unstable inmate, armed with a sharpened piece of metal, focused on Chang Ho. Just as he was about to strike, No Park lunged forward, taking the blow intended for Chang Ho. He got back up, attempting to continue the attack, but the injured No Park clung to his legs. This bought Chang Ho enough time to notice the situation. He quickly intervened, kicking the mentally unstable inmate to the ground. Seeing No Park injured on his behalf, and the attacker laughing maniacally, Chang Ho's eyes widened in fury. At that moment, the guards arrived to quell the riot. Chang Ho, who had only claimed to be big-mouthed to survive, was now exposed in the midst of battle. This not only endangered his fellow inmates, but also sowed seeds of doubt in the warden's mind. But what happened next would defy all expectations. The warden was initially surprised by No Park taking a blow for Chang Ho, but after a whispered conversation with No Park, he released Chang Ho's group from solitary confinement. The leader of the attackers hurled insults at Chang Ho, who returned a death stare. Sure enough, when the guards delivered the attacker's meal, he was found dead. But where did the rope in the solitary cell come from, and how did he get up there? Chang Ho, visiting the injured No Park, witnessed the guards removing the body. The warden called him over, questioning him and demanding an end to the violence. Chang Ho feigned ignorance, but upon seeing the body of the lead attacker, he understood the warden's implication. However, his reaction was carefully noted by the warden, further solidifying the belief that he was a fake. News of the lead attacker's apparent suicide in solitary spread like wildfire through the prison, causing widespread panic among the inmates. The guards intensified their surveillance of Chang Ho, but this didn't deter his resolve to become stronger. His aura of leadership grew, his following expanded, and his ascension to true dominance within the prison seemed imminent. The intensifying rumors eventually reached solitary confinement, terrifying the two remaining attackers who frantically banged on their doors, desperate to be released. Left with no other option, the guards reported the situation to the warden, who made a decision he would soon regret: release them. In the cafeteria, Chang Ho was calmly enjoying his meal when two brazen criminals swaggered in. Jerry immediately alerted him, but as Chang Ho looked up, he locked eyes with the unhinged one. The trio instantly became the center of attention. Everyone anticipated Chang Ho's retribution. Even old Chun Sik was eagerly watching the unfolding drama. But after the three settled into their seats without incident, disappointment rippled through the room. However, Chang Ho's expression sparked curiosity. "Boss, aren't you going to eat anymore?" he asked. When the two criminals suddenly collapsed, Chang Ho's eyes widened in surprise. Everyone immediately swarmed around. Ultimately, under the watchful gaze of the entire cafeteria, the two met their demise on the spot. Perhaps Big Mouse was right there, lurking close by. This time, the warden couldn't sweep the deaths under the rug with a suicide explanation. The outside criminal investigation unit had become involved, determining the cause of death to be poisoning. But they had only been out of solitary for 4 hours. How were they poisoned? The investigators demanded to review the security camera footage of their movements. Surprisingly, their entire journey appeared completely normal. But during their meal, they pulled something from their pockets and put it in their mouths. Poison. Furious, the warden stormed the cells, searching for evidence. He found nothing, only earning the ridicule of the onlookers. He redirected his frustration onto the inmates who had gathered to watch the spectacle. But to his surprise, they ignored him completely. Seeing this, Chang Ho lowered his hand and stepped forward. With a single look, he silenced them all. This stark contrast finally made the warden realize the situation was spiraling out of control. To undermine Chang Ho's authority, he loudly proclaimed that the recent deaths were suicides due to mental illness. But Chang Ho calmly countered, "Then what terrified these mentally ill individuals so much that they took their own lives? And what drove them to madness in the first place?" This was also the warden's own nagging question, but unwilling to lose face, he leaned in close to Chang Ho and issued a final warning. "You have 4 days left. If you don't hand over the list, you're dead, and no one will know." It turned out the warden wasn't the only one suspicious of Chang Ho's identity. Chairman Kong Jae-hoon, having saved Chang Ho's life to recover the 100 billion won scammed from the con man, demanded Chang Ho reveal Big Mouse's list of top 5 drug clients to prove his identity. But Chang Ho had no such list. He could only offer the excuse of client confidentiality, further solidifying the chairman's belief that he was a fake. Before leaving, the chairman gave him a 7-day ultimatum: produce the list or die. As a fake Big Mouse, Chang Ho's only hope of producing the list lay in outside help. He repeatedly knocked out guards in camera blind spots, using their phones to call the mayor for assistance. Even more puzzling was Chang Ho's certainty that the mayor was also looking for the real Big Mouse. He told the mayor directly, "The real Big Mouse, having scammed Kong Jae-hoon out of hundreds of billions, can't show his face. He set me up to take the fall. If I can't deliver the list, the real Big Mouse will disappear completely." 2 days later, his wife visited. They embraced tightly, lost in each other, oblivious to the awkward presence of his single friend. "Get out of here," he muttered. After their affectionate reunion, his wife handed Chang Ho a slip of paper, saying the mayor had sent it. Chang Ho unfolded it, revealing the detailed information of 5 individuals. He immediately used his wife's phone to thank the mayor and confirm the list's authenticity. The mayor was certain, having received it from a trusted friend, a former prosecutor. "Thank you," Chang Ho said. "I won't forget this." After obtaining the list, Chang Ho's confidence soared. Unbeknownst to him, the mayor's trusted friend had been bought by Kong Jae-hoon. The list given to the mayor was his fabrication. "I'm a little excited," Kong Jae-hoon mused. "I think Chang Ho will name a few names." Meanwhile, a betting frenzy swept through the prison. Millions of won worth of commissary cards poured in. Sorted and distributed, they fueled a wager, not on whether Chang Ho was Big Mouse, but on a showdown between Big Mouse and the 3 VIP inmates. In the eyes of the prisoners, Chang Ho was Big Mouse. Those who had previously doubted him were now, quite literally, 6 feet under. The gambling escalated, eventually attracting the attention of the VIP trio. A confrontation erupted in the prison garden. Seeing Jerry injured in the ensuing brawl, Chang Ho made a promise. "Tell everyone who believes in me, they're about to make a fortune." The warden arrived just as the conflict threatened to boil over, but the VIPs continued their taunts, sneering, "You're about to be exposed by the chairman." Chang Ho, brimming with confidence, challenged them. "Wanna bet? I'll bet 100 million won you don't have the list. You asking me to bet? I'll bet 300 million. I have the list. Deal." The day to reveal the list arrived. Kong Jae-hoon approached the mayor, smugly declaring the list a forgery and issuing a warning. "If it's proven Chang Ho's list came from you, you'll be implicated as Big Mouse's accomplice, and your career will be over." Fearful for his career, the mayor frantically called the warden to stop the proceedings. But the warden had already chosen his side. He ignored the call and sent for Chang Ho. "You have a visitor." Chang Ho, radiating confidence, emerged from his cell. His followers, waiting expectantly, now saw him as a true boss. Not just someone who could lead them to gambling winnings, but someone who could take down the VIPs. But what awaited him, a trap or a chance to solidify his power? Kong Jae-hoon arrived for the showdown. He demanded both of them write the investors' names on paper, leaving the warden to reveal the result. Everyone assumed Chang Ho was a fraud, but the list of drug traffickers he produced matched the real one perfectly. He even pointed out a misspelled name on his opponent's list. Chang Ho had proven himself to be Big Mouse. News of the outcome spread like wildfire through the prison, igniting a wave of jubilation. Kong Jae-hoon, however, wasn't overly disappointed. He had, after all, been scammed out of 100 billion won by Big Mouse. If Chang Ho was the real deal, he could get his money back. But Chang Ho refused to admit anything, arrogantly demanding proof. Just then, the warden received a call. After hanging up, he ordered Chang Ho to the prosecutor's office for questioning. The intermediary who handled the 100 billion won transaction between Big Mouse and Kong Jae-hoon had been arrested. This presented Chang Ho with his biggest crisis yet. If the intermediary identified him as Big Mouse, he'd not only have to repay the 100 billion won, but face a life sentence. If the intermediary cleared him, all his efforts would crumble, and his life would be in immediate danger. For some reason, upon seeing Chang Ho, the intermediary avoided eye contact. A strange tension filled the room. Finally, the interrogator broke the silence, asking Chang Ho if he had confessed to being Big Mouse. Chang Ho lied, claiming he had done so to avoid unnecessary trouble. Left with no choice, the interrogator turned to the intermediary. Just as the man was about to speak, His watch alarm sounded. It was a reminder to inject his insulin. With his life on the line, he had to attend to his health first. But to everyone's surprise, right after the injection, the man's body began to convulse, and he ultimately collapsed to the ground. Chang Ho rushed over to check on him, only to find himself helplessly watching the man die on the spot. Suddenly, it dawned on Chang Ho, if someone could be murdered inside the prosecutor's office, then Big Mouse must truly be present. With the middleman dead, the prosecution had no choice but to release Chang Ho. Chang Ho knew that to survive in prison, he needed to deal with the warden first. The 3 tycoons who owed him 300 million won came in handy, while he only used a portion of the money to buy influence and protection within the prison. He gave the remaining sum to the warden as insurance for future emergencies. This act of apparent generosity was like switching on high beams for the warden, his loyalty immediately skyrocketing. Afterward, Chang Ho publicly issued a challenge to assert his dominance, starting to punish those who had previously bullied him. The first to nearly face his wrath was the loudmouth Ki Bong from the trio. A bucket of water was abruptly dumped on his head, followed by a live wire falling onto him, causing him to dance amidst a shower of sparks. Though it seemed he was about to meet his end, to Chang Ho's surprise, someone quickly discovered him. While his life was spared, his mental fortitude was completely shattered. Meanwhile, Du tried to numb himself with alcohol. By the time he woke up, his guards were all lying unconscious on the floor. Panicked, he ran for the door, only to be confronted by Chang Ho the moment he opened it. Chang Ho even presented him with a still-beating heart in his hand. Du tore open his shirt to find a gaping hole in his chest and promptly fainted. As the camera zoomed out, it was revealed that only a piece of cloth had been placed on his chest, the same cloth that Chang Ho held in his hand. Just as Chang Ho was preparing to deal with the others, the mayor paid an unexpected visit. This was their first encounter since Chang Ho's claimed identity. The mayor attempted to use his position to pressure Chang Ho, but to his surprise, Chang Ho was unfazed. He retorted, demanding the mayor choose a side, either join him and strategize together, or become an instigator and face the consequences. After all, it was the mayor who had initially dragged Chang Ho into this mess to further his own career. The mayor, not one to back down easily, threatened Chang Ho by using his wife, Mai Ho, as leverage. Unknowingly, he had struck Chang Ho's most vulnerable point. Please don't cross the line. Don't say anything to Mai Ho, my wife. I'll take responsibility for everything. At the same time, the trio of tycoons were seeking help from Chairman Kong Jae-hoon. While they didn't reach any concrete solutions, having such a powerful figure backing them provided some comfort. However, upon leaving, Kong Jae-hoon discovered Chang Ho waiting for him. "You swindler, are you waiting for me? Did you go see my wife?" It turned out that after the middleman's death, Kong Jae-hoon, still suspecting his involvement, had shifted his focus to Mai Ho, hoping to extract information about his missing billions and documents. But Mai Ho, capable of putting Chang Ho through school, was no fool. She cleverly feigned ignorance without revealing any weaknesses. Infuriated, Kong Jae-hoon issued a final warning to Mai Ho. "You saw that thesis, didn't you? Then you know very well. If you don't hand it over soon, you'll be in grave danger." He wondered who would be in more danger. "My husband is Big Mouse." Repeatedly thwarted by the couple, Kong Jae-hoon lost his patience. Not only did he call Mai Ho a widow in front of Chang Ho, but he also warned him, "No matter how long your claws are, you're just a bug in a closet." However, as soon as he finished speaking, his wife called. She told him someone had delivered white chrysanthemums to their house. "These flowers are only for funerals. Was it you? 34 white chrysanthemums. Your wife is 34 this year, isn't she?" A top chairman, threatened by a seemingly insignificant ant. He immediately ordered the warden to find someone to kill Chang Ho at any cost. But the warden, to his surprise, simply asked, "What about the 100 billion won you were swindled out of?" The look of frustrated impotence spoke volumes. After Kong Jae-hoon left, the warden flashed a cunning, self-satisfied smile. Next up was Yi Ho, one of the tycoon trio. His treatment was simple and brutal, mirroring how they had previously treated Chang Ho. Chang Ho offered Yi Ho a deal: testify against the tycoons in court, and his life would be spared. But testifying would also incriminate himself, so how could he agree? He was strung up, his heart practically leaping out of his chest. until he finally agreed to expose Kong Jae-hoon in court. However, his amateur dramatics couldn't fool Chang-ho, who kicked the chair out from under him. This act not only stunned everyone present, but also earned Chang-ho a peculiar look from Jerry. Though Yi-ho was eventually revived with a splash of water, Jerry's gaze lingered on Chang-ho, unsettlingly. "You promised, confess." Meanwhile, the mayor, upon returning from the prison, paid Mi-ho a visit. He told her, "The list I gave was fake," but Chang-ho somehow recited the real list perfectly. Even the middleman, the only one who'd seen Big Mouse, died mysteriously before he could identify Chang-ho as the real Big Mouse. On her way home, Mi-ho received a call from her father. He told her that Chang-ho had borrowed 100 million won before going to prison, a debt that had been repaid in cash from inside the prison. This further solidified her suspicion that Chang-ho was deceiving her. She reminisced about their time together, studying, graduating, navigating life's ups and downs. She even recalled their wedding day, tears welling up in her eyes. Then, she remembered the anxiety she felt when Chang-ho was arrested. It all felt like a cruel joke. A team of beautiful nurses arrived at the prison for health checkups. Despite their numbers, they were clearly outnumbered by the vast prison population. Even Chang-ho, the boss, was visibly affected by their presence, let alone the other inmates, now separated only by a barrier. But the examinations required face-to-face interaction and physical contact. Anticipating the inmates' reactions, the nurses had preemptively arranged for Mi-ho to be present as a buffer. As the doors opened, the inmates surged forward like a pack of hungry wolves descending upon a flock of lambs. Even before the checkups began, the room erupted in chaos. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Sister-in-law! Sister-in-law!" This not only stunned Mi-ho, but also silenced her gossiping colleagues. Even more unbelievable, the inmates began chanting Mi-ho's name in unison. Fortunately, the guards intervened, restoring order and respectfully escorting Mi-ho to meet her husband. To Mi-ho's complete surprise, the meeting place wasn't a visiting room, but an extravagant, luxurious suite. It was equipped with entertainment facilities and even a well-stocked bar. The sight was truly dazzling. But after seeing her ostentatious husband, her expression darkened. Chang-ho tried to embrace her, but Mi-ho pushed him away. "I'm giving you one chance. If you lie, our relationship ends here." "Are you really Big Mouse?" This question, Chang-ho couldn't answer. Even the VIP room was under surveillance. As Chang-ho struggled for a response, Mi-ho's composure began to crumble. "Say something." Left with no choice, Chang-ho pulled her out of the VIP room and onto the exercise yard. Here, they could speak freely. Mi-ho, sharp as ever, immediately understood and felt a pang of guilt for her emotional outburst. What Chang-ho revealed next began to unravel the many mysteries surrounding them. First, the real list. It turns out what Chang-ho initially obtained was indeed the mayor's fake list. Unexpectedly, he was knocked unconscious by a mysterious person. When he woke up, he discovered an additional card in his pocket, with 5 names written on the back. This still wasn't enough to convince Chang-ho that it was the real list. However, the mayor's sudden visit made him realize there was something wrong with his own list. Adding to his suspicion was the sudden death of the intermediary on the way to the prosecutor's office. He happened to find a card on his seat, a card that symbolized death. Chang-ho told Mi-ho, "The reason I used the warning letter with the words protection warning was to establish contact with Big Mouse." He then left a note in the protection warning area and successfully initiated communication with Big Mouse. Now, with the misunderstanding cleared, the two embraced lovingly, much to the warden's chagrin. "She's not here for charity work. She's here to film a melodrama, isn't she?" he grumbled. Soon, it was lunchtime. As Chang-ho entered the dining hall, everyone stood up to greet him, making Mi-ho incredibly proud. Not only that, but when he approached the nurse who frequently bullied his wife, Chang-ho called out her maiden name. Furthermore, confronting Kong Jae-hoon's wife, he revealed not only her secret of bribing high-ranking officials, but also the exact amount down to 2 decimal places. This single act completely resolved his wife's issues at the hospital. In short, no one would dare to bother Mi-ho again. But was this friendly Chang-ho really Big Mouse? No. As he displayed this demeanor, Jerry once again uttered the name, "Boss, so you really are Big Mouse." That evening, Mi-ho was walking downstairs when a phone call stopped her in her tracks. What followed was even more chilling. The caller was the woman who had fallen to her death. She managed only a single sentence before dying tragically. The thesis is hidden in the cross necklace. This immediately reminded my Ho of the cross necklace worn by the hospital director. Without further thought, she drove to her colleague's dinner party and intercepted the director in the restroom. But the moment she saw the cross necklace, her gaze was fixed. Because of this thesis, her husband had not only been unjustly imprisoned, but also labeled with the infamous moniker of Big Mouse. "What are you doing?" Regaining her composure, my Ho quickly apologized to the director, then told her about the thesis supposedly hidden in the necklace, emphasizing that someone had already died for it. However, the director dismissed her claims. She casually removed the necklace, telling my Ho it was a keepsake from her mother. As expected, after my Ho examined it, she found no hidden compartment. "I'm so sorry," she mumbled. With no other options, both women left in frustration. Unbeknownst to them, someone had been in the restroom the entire time. The wife of Yi Ho, one of the 3 Keyball heirs. After overhearing the conversation, she opened her own necklace and found a memory card inside. At the same time, Yi Ho was brought before Chang Ho once again. What was it this time? Chang Ho remained silent, picking up a paint can and casually tossing it into a fire. The flames erupted. Under the flickering light, Chang Ho's terrifying smile reappeared. He slowly spoke. "You're going to betray me? Why not once you're out on bail?" Without further ado, Chang Ho grabbed him, dragged him closer to the fire, and issued a final warning. "If you betray me, you'll be thrown in there." Undeniably, this tactic was highly effective. Even as all 3 celebrated their impending release on medical grounds, Yi Ho remained terrified. Despite his friend's reassurances and the promise of heavy security outside, he found no comfort. At this point, the warden arrived to see them off. His demeanor was not only humble but also included a promise. "In here, I'm Big Mouse. Chang Ho is just a rat." The 3 were overjoyed, but they failed to notice the sudden shift in the warden's expression. Seeing the 3 Keyball heirs off wasn't just the warden, but Chang Ho as well. The 2 factions faced each other again in the main hall, everyone immediately craning their necks, anticipating the drama. However, today the warden clearly sided with the trio. Chang Ho tried to intimidate them, but to his surprise, Ki Bong showed no fear. "Didn't Dr. Han agree to confess? He was just the driver. We too are the murderers." This statement stunned Chang Ho for a full 5 seconds. These were the exact words he'd used to threaten Yi Ho. How did Ki Bong know? Just as he was grappling with this, Chun Sik suddenly emerged from behind the 3 heirs. Simultaneously, the men behind Chang Ho switched allegiance, returning to Chun Sik's side. Chang Ho was left with only Jerry. Even more baffling, Jerry, who had once taken a knife for Chang Ho, now wore a mocking smile. The situation was truly unpredictable. Just yesterday, inmates and guards alike had worshipped Chang Ho, yet within a day, they had all betrayed him. They even confined Chang Ho to solitary confinement, preventing his release. With a dismissive bye-bye, everyone walked past him, even the gossiping inmates wearing expressions of disappointment. Was Chang Ho truly about to be utterly defeated? But after everyone had left, a terrifying smile crept across his face. "You've all been played. What a bunch of fools." Meanwhile, my Ho was working the night shift alone. The elevator doors closed, then abruptly opened again. She peered out but saw no one. Assuming a malfunction, she dismissed it without suspicion. She was completely unaware of a figure that had just darted past. Just as she breathed a sigh of relief, the ceiling began to shake violently. She frantically pressed the emergency button, but it was useless. Next, she grabbed her phone to call for help, but the elevator, which had previously had a signal, was now completely dead. Suddenly, a masked figure appeared behind her. She quickly sprayed pepper spray, but the attacker recovered and tackled her. As my Ho feared the worst, the elevator doors opened again, revealing the mayor. Seeing my Ho relatively unharmed, he chased after the masked figure, but lost him after 2 turns. Worried about my Ho's safety, the mayor hurried back to the elevator. Fortunately, the attacker hadn't returned. Facing her rescuer, my Ho completely let down her guard. She not only produced a vial of blood from her bag, but also declared, "This is the key to uncovering the secret." The mayor's expression turned strangely upon hearing this. Earlier that day, a critically ill patient had arrived. As my Ho moved to help, the head nurse pulled her aside, informing her that the patient had signed a do not resuscitate order. A group of nurses stood idly by the bedside as the patient passed away. Haunted by guilt, my Ho attended the patient's funeral. There, she overheard the family discussing cremation, as the agreement stipulated no autopsy and immediate cremation. Such a strange contract immediately alerted my Ho to a possible conspiracy. Determined to uncover the truth and clear her husband's name, she had gone to the morgue in the middle of the night to obtain a blood sample. But she never expected to nearly lose her life in the elevator. Simultaneously, her husband, Chang Ho, began to orchestrate a surprising turn of events within the prison. Originally, all the inmates had revered him like a god. However, after the 3 heirs' release, not only did the warden and guards immediately turn against him, but even Chun Sik, whom he had recently recruited, betrayed him. Yi Ho, the key witness to his innocence, was under 24-hour surveillance, leaving Chang Ho with no opportunity to act. Today happened to be the warden's weekend off. Before leaving, he repeatedly emphasized Chang Ho must have absolutely no contact with Yi Ho. Though the guards outwardly complied, as soon as the warden left, their expressions changed. One winked at Chun Sik. Chun Sik then grabbed Yi Ho by the neck and dragged him toward the chapel. Very quickly, he was tied to a chair. "What do you want?" "Don't blame me. These are Chairman Kong Jae-hoon's orders." It turned out that to prevent Yi Ho from testifying in court, Kong Jae-hoon had bribed old man Chun Sik and the prison guards, deciding to eliminate any future trouble. But just as they were about to make their move, Chang Ho suddenly barged in with a group of his men. Don't let the age and frailty of Chang Ho's crew fool you. Every one of them was armed. Chun Sik's men, on the other hand, were a fearless bunch. It went without saying that Chang Ho was trying to protect Yi Ho, which directly contradicted Chun Sik's objective. So, without further ado, the two sides clashed. No one suspected that everything unfolding was part of Chang Ho's plan. However, the outcome was a Pyrrhic victory. After the brawl, Chang Ho successfully rescued Yi Ho. He expected tears of gratitude and unwavering loyalty. Instead, the moment Chang Ho mentioned the mysterious thesis, Yi Ho's face was etched with fear. "You still want to cover it up for Kong Jae-hoon? One word from me and my life is over. Kong Jae-hoon is nothing." It turned out there was an even bigger power behind Tycoon Kong Jae-hoon. Cut to the men who were just at each other's throats now patching each other up. The atmosphere was surprisingly warm. "Ouch! Be gentle. Are you doing this on purpose?" It turned out that Chun Sik's betrayal was also part of Chang Ho's plan. The goal was to gain Yi Ho's loyalty. However, when one of his men suddenly mentioned the broken statue, Chang Ho's expression changed. Although he covered his eyes with his fist, everyone present heard the suspicions surrounding the statue. A new statue was quickly brought into the prison. The warden wanted everyone involved in the fight to split the cost. Unexpectedly, Chang Ho not only took full responsibility but also went to the warden's office to confess. This, too, was part of his plan. Sure enough, when he returned to the warden's office the next day, the card placed inside the book was gone. He rushed to the statue and retrieved a USB drive from behind it. It turned out there was a camera on the statue facing the chapel door. Now, all he had to do was review the footage to find out who took the card. That person was very likely the mastermind behind everything. But to his complete surprise, only one person visited the chapel that day, and that person was Jerry. The person who had always treated him like a puppet was the one closest to him. Furious, he called Jerry to the bathroom. As soon as Jerry entered, he demanded, "Why did you take the card?" Unexpectedly, Jerry didn't deny it, but instead asked him if he was really Big Mouse. Chang Ho couldn't answer. He had used the Big Mouse persona to promise Jerry that he would cure his mother and give his family a good life. However, his silence was met with Jerry's disappointment. Left with no other choice, Chang Ho issued a final warning. "If you want to live, forget everything that happened today." After Jerry left, Chang Ho reviewed the surveillance footage again. This time, he noticed a discrepancy in the timestamps. Half an hour of footage was missing. Just then, his wife called and said that she had received a bouquet of 32 white chrysanthemums with a card inside. Chang Ho urged her to take a picture of the card and send it to him. The card read, "Inverted spray," meaning, "Don't think you're so smart." It was a warning. The second swallow has flown away happily. Fortunately, there was still a second swallow. He hadn't failed yet. However, Chang Ho was completely unprepared for the price he was about to pay for the words he had spoken to Jerry. That day, Jerry's sister came to visit. She not only told him that his mother had been transferred to a major hospital, but also that a mysterious benefactor had donated a large sum of money for a settlement. He could be released from prison. At first, Jerry thought it was Chang Ho's doing, but when he saw the mysterious benefactor, he froze. It was Kong Jae-hoon. The scene shifts to Jerry carrying a box of drinks back to his cell. Announcing his impending release to his cellmates, he hands each of them a bottle. Finally, his expression turns strange as he retrieves a bottle from the corner and offers it to Chang Ho. "Thanks for everything. Live well, and don't cause any more trouble that lands you back here." With that, Chang Ho opens the bottle and drinks it down without any hesitation. The effect is immediate. He clutches his stomach, writhing in pain on the floor. Meanwhile, Jerry exits the prison gates, ready to make his escape. Just then, Mai Ho arrives to visit her husband. Jerry quickly turns to flee, but the prison gates suddenly open and an ambulance speeds past. Perhaps out of guilt, he stops Mai Ho as she gets out of her car. "Your husband is in that ambulance. He suddenly had severe stomach pains. We should follow it." To Mai Ho and her two companions' surprise, the ambulance isn't headed towards a hospital. Realizing the gravity of the situation, they rush to intercept the ambulance. The prison guard tries to reprimand them for obstructing official business, but Mai Ho jumps onto the ambulance, identifying herself as the patient's wife and a nurse, and demands they drive to the hospital. Kong Jae-hoon's plan is temporarily thwarted, but as long as Chang Ho remains in the custody of the prison authorities, their scheme isn't over. First, while Chang Ho is still unconscious, the guard uses his fingerprint to authorize a document and delivers it to Kong Jae-hoon. This document is actually a request for bail. Then, as soon as Chang Ho's condition improves slightly, they demand his return to prison. Mai Ho is powerless to stop them and can only watch helplessly as Chang Ho is loaded into the prison van and driven away. Unbeknownst to her, Chang Ho is restrained inside the van and injected with a sedative, rendering him unconscious. The van's final destination is a psychiatric hospital. The prison's top dog is treated like a lunatic and committed to a mental institution. His protests and pleas are ignored as the doctors proceed with their treatment. He's forced to lie there, looking at his food tray, the smell a meager comfort against his hunger. If he tries to sleep, he's slapped awake. Seeing Chang Ho on the verge of a mental breakdown, Tycoon Kong Jae-hoon initiates the next phase, injecting him with a serum. "This should loosen your tongue and tell me where my money is." This was the reason he risked kidnapping the con man king to force him to reveal the location of 100 billion won worth of gold bars. The high-tech serum appears to work. After some struggling, Chang Ho becomes calm. A cute little mouse appears in his vision, climbing onto his leg and even bowing to him. When he regains consciousness again, his mental defenses have crumbled. Kong Jae-hoon seizes the opportunity. "Where is the gold hidden?" Chang Ho's answer is unexpected. "I don't know." Could the drug be ineffective? He tries another tack. "Are you really Big Mouse?" Chang Ho replies that he isn't. In truth, Chang Ho's answers are accurate. He isn't Big Mouse and doesn't know where the gold is. But Kong Jae-hoon doesn't believe him. Assuming the dosage was insufficient, he injects Chang Ho with another dose. 2 doses within 24 hours are lethal. If Chang Ho dies, Kong Jae-hoon will never find the gold. Chang Ho is now near death. A bright doorway appears before him. Opening it means death. As he reaches for the door, a rush of seawater floods in. Chang Ho is truly awake now. But Kong Jae-hoon's patience has run out. He grabs the syringe, preparing for another injection. Panicked, Chang Ho blurts out an address, Gan Mountain, Markera 2. Everyone fears death. The location is a fabrication, a place he'd seen while hiking with his wife. It's a desperate attempt to buy time. "If you're lying again, you'll get the rest of this." A peaceful journey to meet the King of Hell. The scene shifts to Kong Jae-hoon arriving at the location with his henchmen. Worried about theft due to the sheer volume of the 100 billion won in gold, he decided to oversee the digging himself. Meanwhile, Chang Ho attempted to buy his freedom. He had to escape before Kong Jae-hoon returned or faced certain death. However, even after offering 3 billion won, his captor remained unmoved. At that moment, a doctor arrived for a shift change. After a brief exchange in sign language, the man left. Could he not hear? Back at the dig site, having dug over a meter deep without finding any gold, frustration was mounting. Suddenly, Ki Bong unearthed something resembling a large box. Excitement surged. After further digging, they finally hauled the container up. It was indeed gold. What's this? Only 1 bar? Discarding all pretense of composure, a frantic Kong Jae-hoon jumped into the hole, digging furiously. The scene cuts back to Chang Ho, still plotting his escape, when Kong Jae-hoon stormed in, raging, "Are you messing with me? A hole over a meter deep, and only 1 gold bar." Chang Ho was stunned. The location he'd fabricated actually held gold. This confirmed that Big Mouse was watching his every move. If he could just buy some time, he might be rescued. Regaining his composure, Chang Ho claimed the vast amount of gold was buried in over 10 locations, this being the smallest. "You're playing a dangerous game," Kong Jae-hoon warned. Chang Ho stalled, insisting on eating before revealing more. His gamble was paying off. Elsewhere, someone was dousing the mental hospital in gasoline and lighting a fire. "Wow, Big Mouse picked the perfect moment," someone observed. The arson was intentional. All security systems were disabled. The consequences of a mass breakout were unthinkable. The doctor frantically called the police, but firefighters arrived before the call even connected. Even more surprisingly, they headed directly to the fire on the upper floor. One firefighter even broke off and headed to the basement. Locked in the basement was the infamous Big Mouse, weakened by 3 days without food. Even a small nurse could overpower him. Just as the once formidable con man was about to be beaten, the firefighter arrived. Removing his helmet, he revealed himself as Jerry, recently released from prison. Working together, they freed Chang Ho. But the pursuing nurse was hot on their heels. With no other option, Jerry urged Chang Ho into a waiting black car, while he created a diversion. Chang Ho hesitated, but Jerry assured him, "I received Big Mouse's payment." This confirmed Jerry had met the real Big Mouse. But the urgency of the situation prevented further questions. They parted ways. Chang Ho quickly found the black car under a bridge. Inside, he found a disguise, cash, and a phone. A message on the phone revealed the location of a hotel booked by Big Mouse. Reaching the hotel meant passing numerous checkpoints. Fortunately, an accident at the first checkpoint distracted the police, allowing him to pass without scrutiny. But glancing at the accident scene, he recognized the driver, Jerry. From the moment Chang Ho was wrongly imprisoned, Jerry had stood by him, unwavering in his support and belief despite the injustices and questions surrounding him. Now, Jerry had sacrificed his life for him, and Chang Ho couldn't even say goodbye. Grief hardened Chang Ho's resolve. Therefore, as he approached the second checkpoint, he watched the traffic officer with a sharp gaze. If they tried to stop him, he was prepared to fight. To his surprise, the officer waved him through. "All right, go ahead." Chang Ho was astonished but pressed on, quickly driving away. The camera then focused on the back of the officer's ear, revealing the Big Mouse organization's logo. Following the final address, Chang Ho arrived at the pre-booked hotel. Awaiting him were leather shoes, a watch, cash, a membership card, and even a tailored suit. Seeking more information, he turned to the internet, only to discover his wife Mai Ho on a hunger strike to clear his name. Upon learning of Chang Ho's supposed escape, Mai Ho, her father, and friends protested outside the prosecutor's office, insisting he'd been captured, not escaped. This shifted public opinion away from condemnation and allowed Chang Ho to follow her actions and establish contact. The following day, Mai Ho noticed a familiar message on a large billboard, "I will make you happy for the rest of your life, Chang Ho's marriage proposal." Recognizing their private code, she borrowed a phone and called the insurance number displayed on the screen. "Honey, I've put you through so much. I'm the one who's suffered more. Where are you now? The clock tower by the billboard. Mi-ho looked up, spotting the figure she longed to see. Tears welled up, but the presence of onlookers forced her to maintain composure. Seeing his wife's strength, a heartbroken Chang-ho reassured her, "I'm here now. You can rest. Leave the rest to me." Meanwhile, Kong Jae-hoon handed the VIP trio a document containing their courtroom testimony. He then received a call from Yi-ho's wife. She held the crucial thesis related to the trial and demanded Yi-ho sign divorce papers in exchange for its return. Otherwise, she'd release it publicly. Kong Jae-hoon, aware of Yi-ho's possessiveness, suggested she approach him directly. Anticipating refusal, she threatened to give the thesis to Big Mouse. Public release would complicate their acquittal. Giving it to Big Mouse would make it impossible. Left with no choice, Kong Jae-hoon pressured Yi-ho to sign. The trial day arrived. The VIPs arrogantly declared, "I know this case best. I swear on my honor, we are innocent." Unbeknownst to them, a live broadcast exposing their guilt was already circulating online. Meanwhile, Chang-ho donned his tailored suit and limited edition watch, exuding an aura of power. As the court session began, the online reveal of the mysterious informant commenced. Viewership was initially low due to work hours. However, as the camera focused on the approaching figure, shares skyrocketed. Everyone waited to see the informant's identity. "Hello everyone. I am Big Mouse." This declaration exploded online, trending instantly. Viewership soared to unprecedented levels. But Chang-ho's next words cemented his status in Korean live streaming legend. "Let me predict the outcome of today's trial." This live stream captivated the entire nation of South Korea. The streamer was not only a fugitive who had recently escaped prison, but also Big Mouth, the infamous con artist. A bounty of 50 million won had been placed on his head. Everyone watching hoped to glean a clue from the video that would lead them to a quick 50 million. But the man's next words made everyone forget about the reward. The verdict today will undoubtedly be not guilty. The trial itself had garnered little attention, but under Big Mouth's influence, viewers flocked to watch. It came to light that the defendants were three powerful keyballs. Even more shocking, Big Mouth began predicting each stage of the trial with chilling accuracy. He even predicted the contents of private chat logs submitted as evidence by the prosecutor. Word for word, the internet exploded. Public attention immediately focused on the fairness of the court proceedings. To prove this wasn't a coincidence, Big Mouth went on to predict the prosecutor's third piece of evidence, the so-called smoking gun, the victim's DNA found on the defendant. Sure enough, a minute later, the prosecutor presented this very evidence. But how could the defendants escape such damning proof? Big Mouth then addressed his viewers, CPR. The next second, the courtroom erupted as video footage of CPR being administered was shown. This instantly rendered the smoking gun worthless. However, these synchronized predictions finally alerted those inside the courtroom. To prevent further damage, the prosecutor was signaled to adjourn the trial. He then rushed into chambers to confer with the three keyballs. Meanwhile, the prosecutor's team scrambled to locate Big Mouth's broadcast location. At that moment, Yi-ho's wife called with a final ultimatum. Unless he delivered the signed divorce papers, she would hand over a crucial piece of evidence, a dissertation, to Big Mouth. When Kong Jae-hoon asked for her location, she boldly replied, "I'm across the street from the courthouse." Kong Jae-hoon immediately led a group of security guards to a nearby cafe. Spotting the woman by the window, he had his men clear the area, leaving only the two of them. Upon receiving the signed divorce papers, complete with fingerprints, she handed over a memory card containing the dissertation. Back in the courtroom, the trial resumed. Predictably, the judge declared the three keyballs not guilty, perfectly aligning with Big Mouth's prediction. Public outcry and protests were powerless to change the verdict. The triumphant keyballs addressed the cameras, arrogantly proclaiming that the fairness and rigor of Korean law had protected them from being swayed by public opinion. But their victory was short-lived. As their words faded, an advertising truck pulled up in front of the courthouse. Big Mouth appeared on the screen, addressing the crowd. He stated that new, irrefutable evidence was required to overturn the not guilty verdict, and that he would now provide it. The screen then switched to footage of Kong Jae-hoon's meeting with his wife. "You think you can play me?" he snarled. It turned out the dissertation wasn't written by Professor Seo. Professor Seo was the victim. The woman revealed she had seen the black box footage of the incident. Agitated, Kong Jae-hoon exclaimed, "That damned Professor Seo deserved to die." At that very moment, his men burst in, warning him, "There's a camera." Kong Jae-hoon finally spotted it, perched in a tree. Enraged, he stomped it to pieces. But Big Mouth was one step ahead. As the advertising truck's screen slowly ascended, it revealed Big Mouth, the fugitive, sitting calmly inside, dressed in a sharp suit. However, Chang Ho wasn't the real Big Mouth. It was the mayor. Always impeccably dressed, he was the one who initially dumped the gold into the pit. He was also the one who replaced Chang Ho and buried the gold bars in Goan Mountain. He was even the one who called the 3 key balls after their near-death experience. Now, with Kong Jae-hoon and Chang Ho having effectively destroyed each other, he was the one who benefited most. He had gained the trust of both Chang Ho and Mai Ho. He personally delivered the coveted dissertation to the chairman, smoothly informing him, "There's nothing in this world that can threaten you now." This move earned him the chairman's immediate approval. That evening, the chairman summoned the mayor's wife, his own granddaughter, and confided in her. He intended to pass the chairmanship to her husband, and she could assist him in the future. Meanwhile, the triumphant mayor opened his vault and retrieved a backup copy of the dissertation, a sinister smile spreading across his face. It turned out that the mayor was the one who initially approached Yi Ho's wife. Through coercion and manipulation, he not only convinced her to hand over the dissertation, but also promised to help her escape overseas. However, Chang Ho's wife called just then, giving him an idea. He decided to use Chang Ho to take down Kong Jae-hoon and the keyballs. The results were exactly as he'd planned. The 3 keyballs were on the verge of imprisonment. Kong Jae-hoon was abandoned by the chairman, and the mayor remained the trusted ally in Mai Ho's eyes. She even asked him to help Yi Ho's wife leave the country. The scene shifted to the airport, where the mayor wore a somber expression as he looked back at the terminal. However, was this all an act? Certain details hinted that the mayor might not be Big Mouth after all, yet both Chang Ho and Mai Ho remained completely unsuspecting. First, outside the courthouse, as Chang Ho willingly put on handcuffs, preparing to return to prison, his friend informed him that Jerry was still alive. Chang Ho quickly gave his friend a note for Jerry. But as soon as his friend left, a doctor retrieved the note, which read, "Thank you for being alive. I hope to meet you under the sun someday." The doctor casually pocketed the simple message. Later, when Jerry regained consciousness, the doctor reappeared and respectfully presented him with the note. Upon seeing the note, Jerry ripped it to shreds and clenched his fist, clearly enraged. Meanwhile, to investigate the hospital's failure to treat a patient, Mai Ho secretly took a blood sample. During her break, she returned to find herself summoned to the director's office. The doctor who analyzed the blood sample was already there. He handed the report directly to the director in front of Mai Ho. Finding nothing unusual, the director tossed it to Mai Ho. This single act constituted an illegal autopsy, giving the director grounds to fire her. He then publicly exposed her actions on a medical website. Upon learning this, the mayor reached out to Mai Ho, offering to speak with his wife on her behalf. Mai Ho declined his help. He then inquired about Yi Ho's wife, and Mai Ho showed him their recent messages, explaining that she had only contacted her to reassure her of her safety. The mayor then offered his assistance with Chang Ho's trial. Mai Ho's expression turned strangely guarded. "You've already helped us so much," she said. "Once he's cleared of the Big Mouth suspicion, we will repay you handsomely." Back at the penitentiary, Chang Ho's reputation soared. But he wasn't about to sit around waiting for his trial. He had something more pressing to do: find Big Mouse before his court date. Under the cover of darkness, he convinced a guard to unlock his cell and snuck into the warden's office, slipping a note into a book. Unbeknownst to him, someone retrieved the note soon after his departure. It read, "Meet here tomorrow at 8 o'clock. If you don't show, I won't help." The next day, Chang Ho returned to the warden's office and found a tarot card tucked into the book, the Justice card. This signaled Big Mouse's agreement to meet. Chang Ho settled in to wait. Meanwhile, his wife, Mai Ho, went to the hospital to thank Jerry for saving Chang Ho's life. But when she opened Jerry's room, it was empty. Back at the warden's office, the clock ticked closer to 7:58. At 8 sharp, the church doors creaked open. Someone wearing dress shoes slowly approached. Chang Ho, fighting his curiosity, didn't turn until the figure stopped. He slowly rose and faced the newcomer. The big mouse, the subject of rampant online speculation, finally revealed himself. It was the warden, a man known for his love of money. But Chang Ho remained skeptical. The warden proceeded to detail his involvement in the prison's inner workings, including how he'd tricked the two inmates in the cafeteria into taking a supposed truth serum, which was actually a psychotropic drug. He even confessed to planting the real list in Chang Ho's pocket. However, when Chang Ho questioned him about the gold bars buried in Mount Judah, the warden dismissed it as unnecessary information. Chang Ho, not easily fooled, voiced his suspicions about the warden's true identity. Left with no other choice, the warden removed his jacket, revealing a tattoo on his arm. "Surely you believe this?" he challenged. But instead of shock, Chang Ho scoffed. The warden wasn't Big Mouse. The symbol was indeed Big Mouse's, but the real Big Mouse wouldn't wear a dog collar. The warden's attempt had backfired. Chang Ho left the church without a backward glance. The warden, fearing retribution, had no idea that Chang Ho had recorded their entire conversation. Elsewhere, the henchman, a prime suspect, suddenly reappeared behind My Ho, claiming he'd just been to the restroom. When My Ho asked if he'd ever seen Big Mouse's face, he feigned a phone call to avoid the topic. Though she outwardly expressed understanding, My Ho was filled with suspicion as she turned away, while the henchman watched her intently. Chang Ho then called the mayor, informing him that he would reveal everything he knew about Big Mouse to the prosecutor's office the following day. Concerned about potential abuse of power, Chang Ho requested the mayor's presence as a witness. The mayor readily agreed. The next morning, Chang Ho was brought to the prosecutor's office, facing questioning from the mayor and the prosecutor. He abruptly brought up the past drug case, the very incident that had landed him in jail. The mayor's face immediately contorted. He had orchestrated the planting of the drugs in Chang Ho's drink, making him the true culprit behind Chang Ho's wrongful imprisonment. After receiving assurances from both men that the drug case wouldn't be pursued, Chang Ho put his feet up on the table and produced the recording. The warden's voice filled the interrogation room, stunning both the mayor and the prosecutor, and even shocking Kong Jae-hoon, who was monitoring the situation from outside. The prosecutor was the first to react, claiming the warden's love of money was well known, suggesting collusion and fabrication. Unfazed, Chang Ho simply asked how much it would take to bribe the warden into such a charade. The enraged prosecutor lunged for the recording, but Chang Ho handed it to the mayor instead. "You handle it, Mayor. I don't trust him." The mayor, visibly relieved, took the recording and instructed the prosecutor to obtain an arrest warrant for the warden, assuring him that he would handle the paperwork. With the interrogation seemingly concluded, Chang Ho unexpectedly requested they keep the recording secret. This immediately irked the mayor. "Do you already have a suspect in mind for Big Mouse?" he questioned. Before that matter could be resolved, Chang Ho was on his way back to the penitentiary. Glancing outside, he witnessed a bizarre sight, a massive flock of crows forming a human shape in the sky, then morphing into another figure before plummeting into the river below. Preoccupied, Chang Ho dismissed the phenomenon, but was surprised to find the warden waiting to escort him back inside, straight into solitary confinement. "Just wait here quietly. Don't cause any trouble," the warden instructed. "It's no use, whatever you do. The prey has escaped." "What prey?" Chang Ho retorted. "The prey that can switch identities. Don't tease the mentally ill patient." Ignoring the warning, a prison guard continued to taunt the mentally ill inmate. This time, the inmate snapped, biting off the guard's ear. Other inmates tried to intervene but were nearly injured themselves. The guard attempted to flee, but the inmate tackled him, raining blows down on his face. Just as the situation escalated, the warden arrived and subdued the inmate. But the inmate, in a frenzy, bit the warden's hand, horrifying the onlookers. Even 4 taser shots failed to bring him down. He ripped out the electrodes. He turned on the warden, eyes blazing with fury. Finally, a 5th taser shot to the neck brought him down, but the proximity to the brain proved fatal. Coincidentally, the warden was interviewing 3 nurses at the time. 2 of them immediately grabbed a defibrillator. My Ho, following the warden, rushed to the scene and began CPR. The other nurses arrived with the defibrillator, but realized they'd forgotten the battery. With no time to retrieve it, my Ho continued manual resuscitation. Just as she was about to administer mouth-to-mouth, the inmate gasped for air. My Ho had clearly passed the interview, unlike the other two nurses. "You can all go back and wait for the interview results," the warden announced. My Ho became the prison nurse. This brought her closer to Chang Ho and provided a means to communicate with the outside world, but it also gave the warden leverage. This explained the warden's composure when Chang Ho mentioned the identity swap. Chang Ho was unaware of his wife's new position during his meeting at the prosecutor's office. The chairman, bringing Chang Ho his meal, revealed the news. Chang Ho, understanding his wife's nature, wasn't surprised. "That's my Ho," he mused. My Ho, now busy with her duties, accompanied the mentally ill inmate to the outside hospital. The warden, receiving a call from the mayor, abruptly left the room, creating an opportunity for my Ho. Seizing the moment, she drew the inmate's blood and later delivered it to a mysterious figure under the cover of night. The next day, my Ho entered the infirmary to find the warden waiting. Under the guise of orienting her to the prison, he began probing her about the contents of her thesis, treating her with condescending familiarity. My Ho felt deeply insulted. "Chang Ho told me to ask you about the specifics," the warden revealed. "I heard you're Big Mouse's right-hand man." My Ho retorted, "I heard the same from Chang Ho, that's why I'm here." After Warden Park met with my Ho, Chang Ho, enraged, stormed in, not only overturning the chessboard but also grabbing the warden by the collar, demanding my Ho's immediate release. Unexpectedly, the warden told him to convince my Ho himself. If he could persuade her to leave, the warden wouldn't stop her. Then, the warden revealed that Big Mouse had informed him they would use a question and answer method to exchange confidential information. When Chang Ho questioned why Big Mouse cared so much about the thesis, the warden replied that someone crucial to Big Mouse had died because of it. When the warden asked, "What's written in the thesis, anyway?" Chang Ho responded with a single word, "blood." Using blood tests as a pretext, Chang Ho collected blood samples from the inmates. Afterward, he arranged a meeting with my Ho on the rooftop. They embraced tightly upon seeing each other, but the sweet moment was short-lived. Chang Ho warned her that chaos was about to erupt and urged her to leave immediately. But if she were the type to listen to him, she wouldn't be his wife. Unsurprisingly, his pleas fell on deaf ears. Just then, alarms blared, and they witnessed a convoy of black cars entering the prison. The prosecution had arrived to arrest the warden. At the same time, the tycoon Kong Jae-hoon, in the midst of a meltdown, received a call from the warden. Hearing that someone was coming for him, he erupted in curses and demanded the warden hand the phone to the prosecutor. To his surprise, the prosecutor put the call on speakerphone. Kong Jae-hoon's tirade, including his threats, was broadcast to everyone present. Unfazed, the prosecutor boldly stated they were acting on the mayor's orders and abruptly hung up. Resigned to his fate, the warden submitted to being handcuffed. Suddenly, Kong Jae-hoon burst into laughter. "I thought I was so clever. Was this all your plan?" Indeed, the mayor was now Big Mouse's target, but this was just the beginning of the war. The arrested warden, seemingly oblivious, remained defiant, like a pig headed for slaughter. However, when the prosecutor played a recording, his eyes widened and his fists clenched. The warden was shocked to realize the recording was of Chang Ho. But if not Park Chang Ho, then who? It was the person he trusted most, Gan Su-chul, the warden's right-hand man. Now, Su-chul sat beside the mayor and Chang Ho as the new warden. He even told Chang Ho that the mayor had given him the recording and asked him to expose the former warden. The prosecutor relayed this information to the former warden, who, once Big Mouse's loyal enforcer, now harbored intense hatred for the mayor. Meanwhile, the mayor's wife, the hospital director, was leaving work. She casually picked up a juice from her desk, taking a few sips. This scene mirrored Chang Ho's accident. As she drove, she quickly became disoriented, struggling to control the car as panic set in. The mayor was discussing plans against Big Mouse when his bodyguard rushed in and turned on the TV. News of the director's accident flashed across the screen. Without hesitation, the mayor grabbed his coat and rushed out. Chang Ho's expression shifted. After Kong Jae-hoon denied being an accomplice to the three tycoons, Chang Ho had suspected the mayor. He'd called my Ho, asking if Mayor Choi had been present when she submitted the blood samples. Upon receiving confirmation, he'd warned her to watch for any switched bags when collecting the results. My-ho discovered the reports had indeed been tampered with. It was the mayor's doing. Chang-ho then deliberately contacted the mayor, offering him the role of witness and entrusting him with crucial evidence against Big Mouse, effectively positioning himself to strike from within the mayor's inner circle. Ironically, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Kong Jae-hoon, by obstructing the mayor's ascension to chairman, inadvertently aided Chang-ho, giving his plans a significant boost. Now, Big Mouse and the mayor are locked in a head-to-head battle. Whoever can win Chang-ho's allegiance gains a decisive advantage. Therefore, Big Mouse is certain to make an appearance to seek him out, and after he appears, we'll capture him and eliminate the mayor. The once arrogant and cruel Warden Park returned to the prison. How could the inmates he'd tormented let him off easy? They were ready and eager for payback. However, before he could have any close encounters with the general population, he ran into his former subordinate, the previous deputy warden. The prison uniform suited him. He punched the new warden right in front of everyone. Wasn't that just asking for trouble? The former deputy warden had been looking for an opportunity to put his former superior in his place, and this was his chance. But assaulting someone in front of so many witnesses wasn't wise, so he backed off. However, determined to find Big Mouse, he immediately ordered everyone with Big Mouse's tattoo to be brought forward. It turned out that before Warden Park's return, Chang-ho had informed the new warden about Big Mouse's symbol and instructed him to assemble all the inmates for a strip search. It has to be said, the villains in Korea are all trash. Nearly everyone seemed to have dragon or tiger tattoos. This made finding Big Mouse's symbol difficult, but they eventually located 3 of Big Mouse's underlings. Chang-ho had specifically instructed the new warden not to tip them off, intending to wait for them to contact Big Mouse before making any arrests. However, the newly appointed warden was eager to assert his authority. Despite pledging loyalty to Chang-ho in front of the mayor just yesterday, he expressed his displeasure at Chang-ho's drunken behavior. So, as the new warden was losing control of the situation, with the 3 underlings facing off against the former warden, Chang-ho arrived with reinforcements and reprimanded him in a scathing tone. A dog shouldn't bite the hand that feeds it. This enraged the new warden, who immediately ordered Chang-ho's arrest. But Jerry, the muscular inmate, stepped in, shielding Chang-ho and fiercely warning the new warden. He despised traitors who bit back at their benefactors. Chang-ho stepped forward, reminding the warden that if a riot broke out, he, Chang-ho, would only end up in solitary, while the newly appointed warden might lose his position entirely. Left with no choice, he reluctantly allowed Chang-ho to take the former warden away. But this time, the 2 men were on equal footing, though the treatment they received was vastly different. Under Chang-ho's intimidation, the inmates temporarily held their breath. However, this special treatment couldn't buy the loyalty of the wily former warden. He immediately declared he wouldn't betray Big Mouse. Unfazed, Chang-ho told him not to speak too soon. He could change his mind and seek him out later. With that, he turned and left, and the former warden entered his cell. The inmates he had once tormented now had their chance for revenge, symbolically crowning the former warden with a makeshift hat. But plans never unfold as smoothly as expected. To secure his position, the new warden called the mayor and lied, claiming Chang-ho had been covering for the former warden all along. In truth, the mayor had long suspected Chang-ho and Big Mouse were working together. A few days prior, his wife had been attacked by My-ho using the same method he had used against Chang-ho. Therefore, upon hearing the new warden's lie, the mayor decided to turn a blind eye. That afternoon, the new warden assembled all the inmates and brought 3 of Big Mouse's men and the former warden onto a stage. Pointing to the tattoos on their bodies, he declared, "These tattoos are the mark of Big Mouse's crew. The Chang-ho you all trust is an imposter." Finally, Chang-ho forced the real Big Mouse to reveal himself. He was Chang-ho's cellmate, the old man who had taken a knife for him earlier. From his hospital bed, he had ordered the warden to release Chang-ho and the others from solitary confinement. With a single glance, he had orchestrated the mysterious deaths of the 3 men who had crossed Chang-ho, all while maintaining the facade of a frail, sickly old man. Even when the new warden exposed Chang-ho as a fake, while everyone else was shocked, he remained calm. To find the real My-ho, the new warden announced a new regimen, recreational time would be halved, work hours doubled, meals would be served in cells, and inmates were encouraged to report any suspicious activity. This sparked outrage and complaints among the prisoners, but only the old cellmate wore a strange expression. The warden's tactics fueled resentment, and the inmates immediately surrounded Big Mouse's 4 men, pressuring them to reveal Big Mouse's identity. As one inmate prepared to strike, Chang Ho suddenly stepped forward. The prisoners, furious at being deceived, were enraged by his audacity. Just as the inmate was about to attack him, the old man with the shaved head stepped out from the crowd and declared, "Anyone who messes with Chang Ho messes with me." His actions confused the inmates. He claimed to have known all along that Chang Ho was a fake Big Mouse. This lie was so blatant that even Chang Ho didn't believe it, let alone anyone else. Ignoring the warning, the inmate lunged. "I told you not to touch him." That single punch shifted the dynamic. No one dared to challenge Chang Ho again. The former warden wasn't so fortunate. From that day forward, he was beaten relentlessly. Whether he was using the restroom or working, someone always sought him out to vent their anger. Chang Ho remained indifferent, waiting for the former warden to break and seek reconciliation. He didn't even flinch as the bruised and battered former warden passed by him. Finally, the former warden couldn't take it anymore and approached Chang Ho in the yard. Instead of revealing Big Mouse's identity, he questioned Chang Ho's betrayal and collaboration with the mayor. To his surprise, Chang Ho revealed he had only pretended to cooperate with the mayor to uncover the truth about the thesis. This revelation stunned the former warden. Pressing his advantage, Chang Ho issued an ultimatum to Big Mouse. "Meet me at the church at 8 o'clock tonight. This is the last chance. If he doesn't show, I'm switching sides." With that, Chang Ho left the yard, unaware of the dramatic events unfolding outside. First, Jerry received a phone call containing crucial information. After learning of Yi Ho's ex-wife's return to the country, the mayor went to her villa. Upon entering, he found her lying in a pool of blood. Chairman Gong Jai-hoon panicked. It turned out he had been having his ex-wife followed since their divorce. He had appeared behind her upon her return to the country. After a struggle, Chairman Gong accidentally killed the mayor's ex-wife. Seeing this, his men immediately whisked him away. They then found the woman's phone and used her fingerprint to unlock it. Upon investigating, they discovered her chat history with My Ho. The mayor was shocked to realize they were closing in on the truth behind the thesis they had been desperately investigating. He called the new warden and ordered him to silence both Park Chang Ho and My Ho that very day. As evening approached, Chang Ho waited patiently at the church for Big Mouse. My Ho was separating serum samples. Neither of them knew the danger they were in. Inside the prison, a guard, under the pretense of quelling a disturbance, slipped a solitary confinement cell card to a prisoner and quickly left. The new warden's rules regarding the capture of Big Mouse, coupled with increased workload and reduced food rations, had fueled immense dissatisfaction among the inmates. As the cell doors opened one by one, a riot erupted. Simultaneously, Chang Ho received a text from an unknown number requesting a meeting in the VIP waiting room. Unsuspecting, he headed towards the room. Upon entering, he found it empty. Seeing it wasn't yet 8 o'clock, he decided to wait. Unbeknownst to him, the new warden was handing a gun to a guard, instructing him to shoot Chang Ho and My Ho during the chaos and blame it on the rioting inmates. The guard, armed, proceeded to the power supply room and sabotaged the electrical system, plunging the prison into darkness. Footsteps echoed in the dark VIP waiting room. Chang Ho fumbled for a lighter on the table. "Are you Big Mouse?" The seemingly harmless old man was indeed the notorious Big Mouse. Initially, Chang Ho assumed it was a game, but when the old man correctly identified the playing card used for communication, Chang Ho was forced to accept the truth. Why me? This question had haunted Chang Ho. He was just a bumbling, henpecked lawyer, wrongly framed as Big Mouse and thrown into the abyss. The old man calmly explained he had never intended for Chang Ho to impersonate him. Chang Ho's recklessness and conflict with the mayor had sealed his fate. He was meant to die, but someone wanted him alive. So, the old man decided to make him his shadow. However, everyone underestimated Chang Ho's abilities. Instead of being controlled, Chang Ho had turned the tables. "The only one who can match your enemy is me." But their shared predicament fractured when Chang Ho mentioned the law. "Don't talk to me about rules." The old man's daughter had been killed in experiments conducted by the conglomerate. fueling his vendetta against them and the mayor. Meanwhile, the riots spiraled out of control. Guards armed with live ammunition faced off against the inmates. The situation had escalated beyond the new warden's expectations. To expedite his plan, he ordered all guards to find Chang Ho while he led a group of inmates to ambush Mai Ho. Unbeknownst to him, their conversation had been overheard by one of Big Mouse's men. Mid-negotiation with Chang Ho, the old man received a call. His expression changed drastically. "Go to the infirmary. Your wife is in danger." Chang Ho's eyes widened. He bolted from the VIP room, forgetting about Big Mouse, his mind consumed with Mai Ho's safety. At the same time, Mai Ho was checking on a psychiatric patient. Chang Ho suddenly called, warning her of impending danger. Sensing trouble, Mai Ho raced back to the infirmary, barricading the door with a hospital bed. Grabbing a syringe, she quickly hid under a window. Over at Chang Ho's side, he was on his way to the infirmary when he was spotted by guards on patrol. Faced with so many of them, Chang Ho, as useless as ever, was clearly outmatched. He was quickly beaten to the ground. Just at the critical moment, the man with a shaved head arrived with reinforcements and rescued him. However, by this time, Mai Ho was in danger. A convict had smashed a window and climbed in. He didn't look down, though, giving Mai Ho the opportunity to inject him with a tranquilizer. She dealt with one, but the commotion attracted the attention of other convicts. Mai Ho desperately tried to barricade the door with a hospital bed, but there were two large men outside, and she couldn't hold them back. Thinking fast, she grabbed a fire extinguisher and sprayed them, taking out another one in the ensuing chaos. But she was exhausted, and facing the last convict, she was vulnerable. He looked at her with predatory eyes. Just as things looked dire, the mentally ill patient appeared behind the convict. After checking that Mai Ho was unharmed, he turned and tackled the remaining convict. However, as he was about to finish him off, he was shot in the shoulder and collapsed. Without hesitation, Mai Ho shoved a bed, knocking the guard's gun to the floor. The patient, despite his injury, landed a decisive blow, bringing a temporary end to the fight. Mai Ho quickly checked his wound and started bandaging it. Before she could finish, the warden appeared. The patient tried to protect Mai Ho, but he was too weak and was knocked unconscious. The warden started to monologue, and just as he finished, Chang Ho arrived. "You bastard, you're bullying my wife." A flurry of punches from Chang Ho temporarily dealt with the remaining threats. The couple embraced. At that moment, Big Mouth and the former warden slowly approached. After exchanging a look, the former warden picked up the dropped gun. Chang Ho instinctively shielded Mai Ho, but the former warden didn't aim at him. He pointed the gun at the current warden. Though they were momentarily safe, the gunshot drew a swarm of armed guards. "Freeze!" The former warden fired a shot into the ceiling, halting the guards in their tracks. This was a temporary reprieve, though. Escape seemed impossible. Then, after a moment of thought, Big Mouth said to Chang Ho, "I accept your proposal, but you better keep your word." It turned out Chang Ho had made an offer earlier in the waiting room, but Mai Ho's situation had interrupted, leaving the details unknown. This meant Big Mouth was now cooperating with Chang Ho. Meanwhile, Gong Jai-hoon was still in a rage after being double-crossed by the mayor. Suddenly, he received a call from Chang Ho, who promised him a big gift. Gong Jai-hoon erupted with joy. "Park Chang Ho, I love you. That damn mayor, he's dead." He was ecstatic. The once untouchable kingpin of the underworld, humiliated and paraded like a monkey through layers of security, only to be handed over to the police, had his revenge. And that useless lawyer, not only catching a major criminal, but also clearing his own name and becoming a star attorney in one fell swoop. How could he tolerate such a crushing defeat? His underlings were restless, ready to revolt. But as they awaited his command, the useless lawyer strolled into the interrogation room. "Why are you here?" To everyone's surprise, Chang Ho ignored their reactions, walked straight to the mirrored glass, and checked his reflection. "Please transfer my client to an interrogation room without surveillance." It turned out the other side of the mirror held Chang Ho's true opponent. They were moved to a private room. Before Chief No could even settle in, Chang Ho pulled out a document and asked him to sign. "It's a retainer agreement." "What are you up to? You need official representation. You just gained notoriety. Why tarnish it so quickly?" "Even if it tarnishes my reputation, I'll bear the consequences." It turned out they'd had a long conversation before Big Mouth's arrest. Chang Ho had proposed a plan. He would use the downfall of the underworld kingpin to elevate his own status, then use that influence to help Big Mouth get revenge on the mayor and the corrupt elite. Big Mouth initially refused, but surrounded by the police, he'd finally agreed. What he didn't anticipate was Chang Ho immediately becoming his lawyer the next day. Still, he signed the agreement and asked about the next step. "I'll apply for your bail. Prepare the funds." Chang Ho then called his friends, urging them to arrange a press conference and gather reporters. The press conference at the prosecutor's office was quickly organized. Chang Ho stood at the podium and announced his agreement with Big Mouth. If the Keyball murder case could be fairly investigated, Big Mouth would confess to all his crimes and forfeit all ill-gotten gains. Because the case involved a powerful figure, he asked the public to become his shield and keep a close eye on the proceedings. A few days later, Big Mouth posted 3 billion won in bail and was released. Everything seemed to be going according to Chang Ho's plan. However, a major player like Chairman Kang was not one to sit idly by. So, when Big Mouth took Chang Ho to his old neighborhood, they were unaware of the impending danger. This is the restaurant Big Mouth ran in his youth. Back then, he was just a cook, and the restaurant's logo is the same as the organization's now. Looking at his old stomping grounds, Big Mouth seemed to regain some of his youthful energy. He invited Chang Ho to sample his cooking the next day. But Chang Ho was more interested in something Big Mouth had mentioned earlier: someone is determined to save you. This person was clearly close to Chang Ho and had known Big Mouth for a long time, but he couldn't figure out who it was. Fortunately, Big Mouth agreed to introduce them at the restaurant the following day. Chang Ho said goodbye and left. As he reached his car, the second floor of the building suddenly exploded. Just like that, Big Mouth, the infamous figure of the underworld, was dead just 5 days after his identity was revealed. And Chang Ho, the man who orchestrated his downfall, was now implicated. The mysterious kingpin of the underworld, dead just days after being exposed. The organization's top brass attended his funeral, but there was one outsider present. He strode towards the nameless, ageless memorial tablet. Before he could offer his respects, the lights went out. Suddenly, Big Mouth appeared on a large screen. It was a final video message recorded before his death. Aware of his many enemies, he had anticipated his demise if exposed. The video was his will and testament, his final command. As everyone watched, "From now on, Big Mouth is not me, but Park Chang Ho." That's right, Chang Ho, the lone outsider, was named by Big Mouth as his successor. Chang Ho, no longer needing to feign his identity, had become the true king of the underworld. But with so many capable individuals within the organization, how could a relative newcomer like him command their respect? The first to voice his doubt was Big Mouth's right-hand man, the former warden. It was a classic case of, when the tiger is gone, the monkey becomes king. Just as the conflict was about to reach its peak, someone unexpectedly claimed responsibility for the video, stunning everyone present. But even more surprised was Chang Ho, as the man who stepped forward was his childhood friend, Soon T. To everyone's astonishment, no one dared to challenge Soon T's claim, not even the former warden, who quietly retreated. The reason? Soon T was Big Mouth's left-hand man. Knowing this wasn't the time for explanations, Soon T issued a stark warning. If anyone doubts the authenticity of this video, they can leave now. This was a blatant threat. Leaving meant abandoning the organization, with consequences everyone understood. Silence fell over the room. Resigned to the inevitable, the former warden gritted his teeth and feigned subservience before storming out. Soon T then turned to Chang Ho, asking if he would accept Big Mouth's dying wish and take his place. This put Chang Ho in a difficult position. Accepting meant embracing the criminal underworld. Refusing, knowing the organization's secrets, would likely be a death sentence. The scene shifts to a church, with only Chang Ho and Soon T present. Though Chang Ho had a million questions, he didn't know where to begin. The two former friends now felt like strangers. Soon T broke the silence, apologizing to Chang Ho and offering to find a way to negotiate his release if he truly didn't want to become Big Mouth. But Chang Ho only had one day to decide. While Chang Ho could potentially escape now that Big Mouth was dead, his wife, Mai Ho, wouldn't allow it. Too many people had died to save him. Walking away would forever haunt them. With Mai Ho's support, Chang Ho met Sun Ti the next day at the beach and issued his first command as the new Big Mouth. Mobilize all resources to investigate Chairman Kang and the mayor, from their past to their present, from their finances to their families' personal lives. Investigate everything, he ordered, down to the number of teeth Chairman Kang has. However, some members of the organization still refused to acknowledge his authority. The first to openly defy him was, predictably, the former warden. Having lost his chance at leadership, he'd acquired a scrapyard on the outskirts of town, absorbing smaller gangs and building his own power base. Chang Ho had initially intended to leave him alone, but the warden made a fatal mistake. He ordered an assassination attempt on the mayor in the name of avenging Big Mouth. Chang Ho had no choice but to make an example of him. He sent Sun Ti and his men to negotiate, but the warden, emboldened by his newfound power, was arrogant and unafraid. He dismissed Chang Ho's men and hurled insults. The next scene takes place at the warden's scrapyard, where men frantically douse a car with gasoline. Inside sits the former warden, his own men nowhere in sight. Sun Ti, without a word, takes a burning torch and slowly approaches the car, looking at the warden as if he were already dead. Terrified, the warden pleads for his life. Just then, Chang Ho calls. After listening, Sun Ti solemnly throws the torch away. Moments later, the battered and bruised warden is brought before Chang Ho, who, now fully embracing his new authority, utters a chillingly deceptive line, "I don't really want this position of Big Mouth. After I avenge our boss, I'll leave." This seemingly conciliatory statement appeared to appease the former warden, but Chang Ho, unaware of the man's cunning, would soon regret this decision. Meanwhile, the tycoon Gong Jai-hoon was drowning his sorrows in alcohol. The previous day, his rival's wife, the mayor's wife, had asserted her control over the company, demanding the chairman transfer all shares to her name right in front of him. This gave the mayor and his wife a controlling interest, stripping Gong Jai-hoon of his power. As the four of them, Gong Jai-hoon, the mayor, his wife, and the chairman stewed in their resentment, Gong Jai-hoon received a call from Chang Ho. "What do you want?" "I'm holding a press conference. A big one. Be there." The scene shifts to Chang Ho standing before a crowd of reporters. "This is my first press conference since taking over as Big Mouth." When a reporter asks about Big Mouth's death, Sun Ti quickly intervenes, stating they have a more important announcement. "I will be running for mayor in the next election," Chang Ho declares, sending ripples of shock through the room. Just then, Gong Jai-hoon arrives. The press conference ends. Chang Ho and Gong Jai-hoon decide to cooperate once again. The enemy of one's enemy is a friend, after all. Chang Ho will help Gong Jai-hoon take down Mayor Choi and his wife, but on one condition. Gong Jai-hoon must support Chang Ho's mayoral campaign. First, however, Chang Ho needs to meet the chairman, the true power behind the conglomerate. Wary of being tricked again, Gong Jai-hoon asks, "You're not trying to use me again, are you?" "No," Chang Ho replies. "We're using each other for a mutually beneficial outcome." Elsewhere, Mayor Choi is briefing the chairman about Chang Ho's candidacy when a subordinate reports that Gong Jai-hoon has brought Chang Ho to meet him. This clearly isn't a friendly visit, but the chairman, intrigued by Chang Ho's motives, insists on meeting him despite Mayor Choi's objections. The chairman is still unaware of Chang Ho's cunning, unlike Mayor Choi, who has experienced it firsthand and senses trouble. "Chairman, my name is Chang Ho." To sow discord within the enemy ranks, Chang Ho readily betrays the high-ranking members of Big Mouth's organization, even falsely claiming his family is being threatened by the new Big Mouth. He offers to act as a double agent, helping the chairman dismantle the organization in exchange for protection. But the shrewd chairman isn't easily convinced, so Chang Ho reveals Big Mouth's organizational structure and even betrays the names of its top leaders. This finally earns him an invitation to the chairman's birthday party, an exclusive privilege with profound implications. While this deception fools the chairman, it doesn't fool Mayor Choi, Chang Ho's greatest enemy. When Chang Ho tries to greet him, Mayor Choi pointedly ignores him and walks away. Despite this, Chang Ho's plan is progressing smoothly, thanks in part to Gong Jai-hoon's endorsement. As a gesture of reciprocity, Chang Ho reveals the whereabouts of the 100 billion in gold. "Big Mouth didn't take it," he says. "Someone close to you did." While true, this statement further fuels the conflict between Gong Jai-hoon and Mayor Choi. However, despite his careful planning, Chang Ho underestimates Mayor Choi's resourcefulness. Upon returning to his base, he's being followed. Mayor Choi witnesses the former warden bowing subserviently to Chang Ho and notes the warden's clear resentment. So a plan to borrow a knife to kill someone immediately popped into his head. Very quickly, Warden Park received a call from Mayor Choi. When he first answered, he was still full of resentment, gnashing his teeth, but when the mayor mentioned Chang Ho, his eyes immediately lit up like car headlights, and he agreed to meet him. After arriving at the meeting point, he ignored the mayor's greetings until the mayor presented a list of high-ranking officials from the Big Mouse organization and said, "This is what Chang Ho personally handed to the chairman." Only then did he acknowledge the mayor's greeting. After all, he now had a legitimate reason, so even if he cooperated with the mayor, it wouldn't be considered betraying the organization. Chang Ho had betrayed them first, anyway. Meanwhile, Chang Ho, still unaware of anything, met privately with Warden Park the next day and assigned him a crucial task: get this old man out of the nursing home, quietly, without making a fuss. It turned out this old man was Mayor Choi's grandfather in name only. In reality, his grandson had drowned 20 years ago, and the mayor had assumed his identity to infiltrate the elite circles, get close to the chairman, and wait for an opportunity to avenge his father. Mai Ho had uncovered this secret, so Chang Ho planned to reveal the mayor's true identity at the chairman's birthday party. The plan was perfect, but he trusted the wrong person. Jerry had repeatedly advised him to be wary of Warden Park, but he stubbornly believed that the warden wasn't inherently bad and just needed trust. However, Jerry remained uneasy and decided to follow and monitor the warden's actions. Unexpectedly, he was knocked unconscious from behind and stuffed into a car trunk. As a result, on the chairman's birthday, Chang Ho and Mai Ho, dressed in elegant attire and impeccably groomed, were ready to steal the spotlight. But as soon as he answered a call, the chairman demanded Chang Ho's presence. He never reappeared at the party. He had been tied to a chair, and his captor was none other than Warden Park. This entire scenario was a charade orchestrated by him and Warden Park. From the moment they feigned discord to the current staged death scene, it was all to lure Mayor Choi into their trap. But the moment Warden Park shot Chang Ho, Jerry witnessed it. He immediately reported it to the organization. The entire city seemed to shake with the news. Hundreds of black cars sped towards the abandoned warehouse. Jerry then informed Mai Ho. Having just attended the party, a devastated Mai Ho rushed to confront Mayor Choi, the mastermind behind everything, and punched him. Mai Ho's reaction only reinforced the mayor's belief that Chang Ho was dead. He quickly got into his car to identify the body, even laughing maniacally on the way. Mai Ho, having lost all hope, fainted in public. However, when the mayor arrived at the warehouse, he found only a pool of blood, the body gone. When Warden Park claimed the body was incinerated, the mayor wanted to verify the ashes. But just then, Big Mouse's men arrived. He had no choice but to retreat. Unbeknownst to him, his conversation with Warden Park had been transmitted to the chairman, word for word. And sitting beside the chairman was Chang Ho. He was a member of the Du family. Their conversation had revealed that Chang Ho had discovered the mayor's false identity. Mayor Choi then confessed to being a descendant of the Du family, whom the chairman had wronged. Chang Ho's plan to borrow a knife to kill was flawless. But what he didn't anticipate was that before the chairman could confront Mayor Choi, the mayor planned to harm the chairman. That night, he stealthily approached the chairman and injected poison into his Roman IV line, putting a definitive end to his revenge plot. At the same time, Mai Ho woke up in a hospital bed to see her supposedly deceased husband. Initially, she thought it was a dream, but the warmth from his touch confirmed that Chang Ho was alive. "What's going on? Why would you scare me like this?" "I'm sorry, it's all because of that loudmouth Jerry," Chang Ho replied. Warden Park also had his own grievances against Jerry. Last night, facing the imposing force of the organization's men, he barely had a chance to explain before being severely beaten. If Chang Ho hadn't called to confirm his safety, he might have been meeting his ancestors. However, their joy was short-lived. Breaking news flashed across the TV screen: the chairman was dead. Unexpectedly, he hadn't been able to withstand Mayor Choi's machinations. Soon after, the chairman's memorial service was held. The venue overflowed with wreaths and floral arrangements, and even the president attended to pay respects. However, the biggest battle wasn't with the president, but with Chang Ho. The initially somber atmosphere was disrupted by Chang Ho's dramatic entrance. His arrival startled many, but the most shocked was Mayor Choi. After a moment of silence, Chang Ho walked directly towards the mayor and issued a formal challenge. "You must be surprised to see me, right?" The name Chairman Du not only astonished Mayor Choi's wife, but also ignited a spark of opportunity in Gong Jae-hoon. The chairman's will had left the entire inheritance to Mayor Choi and his wife, leaving Gong Jae-hoon practically empty-handed. Chang Ho clearly represented his last hope. "I know you killed him, just you wait and see. I'll expose your true colors." This declaration of war was incredibly bold. But Chang Ho was completely unaware that Mai Ho had discovered blood on her toothbrush at home. Remembering that the first symptoms of leukemia were bleeding gums, followed by nosebleeds, she felt a pang of fear. She had previously broken into a conglomerate's secret research facility to rescue mental patients and had been sprayed by a burst water pipe. But for now, it was just bleeding gums, and Mai Ho clung to a sliver of hope. This was a feast for the greedy, vying for the inheritance of a top conglomerate. Everyone was poised, ready to devour this lucrative pie. However, Gong Jae-hoon was the most confident. Not only was he the chairman's grandson, but he had also peeked at the will. Although he resented his 36% inheritance, it still made him the largest shareholder. He had begun colluding with others before the memorial to plan the ousting of Mayor Choi and his wife as soon as the assets were distributed. But would things really go his way? Soon, the chairman's close secretary and a lawyer arrived. Gong Jae-hoon eagerly anticipated the reading of the will, ready to seize the opportunity to assert his position as head of the conglomerate. "I am Kai-soo, the former chairman's personal attorney." Hearing this unfamiliar name, Gong Jae-hoon had a bad premonition and immediately questioned it, as Attorney Young had always been the chairman's lawyer. The secretary explained, "A week before his passing, the chairman changed his lawyer and amended his will." This unexpected change immediately aroused suspicion. Nevertheless, Kai-soo began reading the will. "I bequeath the shares of U Construction, Q Group, C Corporation, Holding Fund, Handicrafts, and Electronics to Ju-hee." Although different from the original will, these were the smallest businesses in the conglomerate, so Gong Jae-hoon remained calm. After all, the most important parts usually came last. The shares of the water and electricity, chemical industries, and mechanical and electrical branches will be transferred to Mayor Choi. This must be a forged will. Gong Jae-hoon was stunned into silence before finally reacting. It seemed that Mayor Choi and his wife had inherited almost all the assets, leaving him with only a few minor businesses. This couldn't possibly be the chairman's decision. Something was definitely amiss. So Gong Jae-hoon immediately stormed over to Mayor Choi to argue. But with people from both sides pulling and tugging, the scene quickly descended into chaos. But no matter the commotion, the damage was done. Nothing could be changed. Meanwhile, Chang Ho had been watching the whole live broadcast of the event unfold, and the outcome was exactly as he'd predicted. He'd warned Gong Jae-hoon before the banquet, but the man stubbornly refused to listen. Not only did he disbelieve Chang Ho's prediction, he even declared he'd never contact him again. Little did he know how quickly he'd be eating his words. Left with no other choice, and with his fortune on the line, he had to swallow his pride and call Chang Ho. But Chang Ho wasn't at his beck and call, and despite Jae-hoon's persistent attempts, his calls went unanswered all day. The next day, Gong Jae-hoon was waiting outside Chang Ho's office. He'd been there for who knows how long, but finally, Chang Ho appeared. Jae-hoon rushed to intercept him, sheepishly muttering, "I'm sorry." But Chang Ho wasn't one to be easily swayed. He gave Jae-hoon the cold shoulder, reminding him of his words from the day before. "You said you'd never contact me again, even if you died." "I was wrong. I sincerely apologize. Please forgive me." For the arrogant Gong Jae-hoon to actually apologize was a sight to behold. Though his apology seemed genuine, Chang Ho still feigned indifference, claiming he didn't feel Jae-hoon's sincerity, and turned to leave. Left with no other recourse, Jae-hoon resorted to his expert-level wheedling. Finally, Chang Ho relented, bringing him inside and revealing that Mayor Choi was an orphan adopted by the Du family. They reached an unprecedented agreement, Gong Jai-hoon would throw his full support behind Chang Ho's mayoral campaign, and once elected, Chang Ho would use legitimate means to completely destroy Mayor Choi. Meanwhile, to prevent Chang Ho from escalating the situation, Mayor Choi even withdrew from the National Assembly race, choosing to continue his mayoral campaign. His aim was to permanently thwart Chang Ho's ambitions. "This is the real sister-in-law," someone remarked. Facing the group of thugs who had countless lives on their hands, she showed no fear, issuing a stark command: regardless of the consequences, by any means necessary, complete the mission. When old Chun Sik asked, "Can we rough them up?" she answered with a resolute affirmative. Just yesterday, she was a devoted homemaker, delivering meals to her husband working late nights. Now, with Chang Ho driven to desperation, she had no choice but to step into the fray herself. It turned out that despite the agreement between Chang Ho and Gong Jai-hoon, Jai-hoon's meager resources were depleted overnight. Not only did all his men defect to Mayor Choi, but he himself was nearly ousted from the corporation. This pathetic excuse for a power player, in order to fulfill his promise to Chang Ho, could only resort to mutually assured destruction, handing Chang Ho a USB drive containing evidence of the corporation's crimes. But facing the man who had helped him repeatedly, Chang Ho couldn't bring himself to destroy him. Instead, he devised a plan: find the chairman's son and file a lawsuit. That will weaken Mayor Choi's power. This opened a new avenue for Gong Jai-hoon. Although the chairman's son was a devil residing in far-off America, at least it would catch Mayor Choi off guard. However, with Jai-hoon's dilemma resolved, Chang Ho's own troubles remained: the lost fraud case from a year prior. He'd been the victim's lawyer, but with flimsy evidence, he'd added another loss to his legendary losing streak. Now, the fraudster, bribed by Mayor Choi, publicly confessed. He even accused Chang Ho of accepting a bribe to intentionally lose the case. The fallout from this slander sent Chang Ho's approval ratings plummeting. Whether he lived or died, he had to face this fight. It turned out that all candidates for the selection process had to participate in a live televised interview the next day. According to reliable sources, Mayor Choi had already bribed the television host to sabotage Chang Ho during the livestream. Seeing her husband willingly walk into this obvious trap, Mi-ho decided to take matters into her own hands. Time, she realized, was not on her side. After a recent nosebleed, she had finally been diagnosed with leukemia. But to avoid worrying her husband, she kept her illness a secret. Now, for Chang Ho, she was determined to investigate the fish farm connected to the contaminated water supply. If she could obtain even a shred of evidence, she could sue Mayor Choi as a victim, potentially turning the tide in Chang Ho's favor. After making some inquiries, Jerry discovered that the fish farm not only had heavy security, but wasn't even producing any seafood. So, Mi-ho decided to gather her crew and raid the farm, hoping to uncover some evidence. Meanwhile, Chang Ho's livestream was about to begin. Everyone at the studio was waiting to see him humiliated, while Mi-ho was still en route to the fish farm. Could she reach him in time? Sister-in-law is personally leading the charge. The entire Big Mouse organization is buzzing. It's even shaking the city. They first secured evidence using the most direct approach. Facing a group of seasoned gangsters, the farm's security, however numerous, was quickly overwhelmed. Confronted by Mi-ho, the farm manager was initially frightened into incoherence, but soon spilled everything. It turns out this entire fish farm is a waste disposal site for chemical companies. All the radioactive waste is secretly discharged into the ocean. The farm was a crucial asset for the conglomerates, a place where they could quickly mobilize in emergencies. But even their mobilized forces were no match for the Big Mouse organization. Sister-in-law, go, I'll hold them off. Go quickly. As both sides clashed, Mi-ho escaped with the evidence. But her red car was too conspicuous, and the conglomerates quickly gave chase. To prevent Mi-ho from reaching the television station, they used their police connections to block all routes. However, Jerry, by Mi-ho's side, wasn't easily deterred. He immediately informed Sun T, Big Mouse's right-hand man. Okay, I'll handle it. Mi-ho also wanted to participate in her husband's live debate as a citizen representative. However, the representative slots were already filled. But these small matters are nothing to Big Mouse. Create a name, add it in, simple. Just as Mi-ho hung up, a police car screeched around the corner, signaling them to stop for questioning. Jerry had no choice but to comply. The pursuing conglomerates, witnessing this, were elated. All this preparation finally paying off. But then, cut to another scene. Sister-in-law, follow me. The outcome surprised even my hoe. With a police escort, their journey became remarkably smooth. Even at checkpoints, they passed through quickly thanks to a few words from the officer. The conglomerates, still stuck in traffic, watched in stunned disbelief. At the same time, the Minister of Communications suddenly appeared in the television studio, demanding that the director add another member of the public to the debate. But the director, already in the conglomerate's pocket, immediately refused, citing a ban on family members. However, to everyone's surprise, the minister just glared at him and turned to leave. After that, my ho's entry into the broadcast station went incredibly smoothly. As soon as she arrived, she was immediately ushered into the live studio. Meanwhile, Chang Ho, who was already on the air, was being backed into a corner by everyone. Mayor Choi even demanded that he withdraw from the race immediately. Just when things were looking dire, my ho finally took a seat in the audience and stood up the moment the host asked for the next question. "I'm go my ho." My ho's appearance not only shocked everyone but also left Chang Ho utterly bewildered. Mayor Choi tried to prevent her from speaking, using the excuse that she was the candidate's wife. But no one expected my ho's next words to completely astound the city's residents. "I'm not here as Park Chang-ho's wife, but as a victim of the chemical group's radiation leak." That single sentence gave Chang Ho goosebumps, and he immediately held his breath and stared at my ho. Due to the sinkhole accident on January 12th, the underground water pipe leading to the fish farm was ruptured. I was at the scene at the time and was exposed to the leaking radiation. I've now been diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma. How could people be so unscrupulous? The woman he harmed has terminal lymphoma, and yet he's still smiling smugly in front of everyone on TV. Even when my ho showed the video of the conglomerates dumping radioactive waste, he didn't seem fazed. That's because he's been the one calling the shots since taking on this project. Even if everything is exposed, he can just blame it all on the deceased chairman. Therefore, the evidence my ho risked her life for ultimately wouldn't hurt him at all. That said, my ho at least salvaged her husband Chang Ho's approval rating, causing it to jump from 22% to 40.2%. Just 5.2% behind the mayor's. But that 5.2% seemed impossibly far away. No matter how hard Chang Ho's team worked, they couldn't catch up. And so, in the end, Mayor Choi retained his position. The successive defeats not only demoralized the members of the Big Mouth organization, but even Chang Ho himself started to lose faith. But my ho tried her best once again to rally everyone's spirits. Just then, someone delivered a package to my ho, but it had no name or address on it. To her surprise, when she opened it, she found a note. "I'm Joo-hee. This is my husband's burner phone. It may contain important evidence." The Joo-hee in question is Mayor Choi's wife, and also the granddaughter of the conglomerate chairman. Chang Ho had proactively reached out to her a few days prior, not only telling her about Gong Jai-hoon's plan to exhume the former chairman's body, but also asserting that Mayor Choi would definitely find a way to prevent it. Sure enough, the outcome was just as Chang Ho had predicted. Mayor Choi quickly had the body cremated. This completely confirmed that her husband was the one who had murdered her grandfather. Therefore, Joo-hee immediately betrayed her husband. But the unconscionable mayor had never trusted anyone, so when Joo-hee secretly stole the phone, he saw it all clearly through the security cameras. As a result, Joo-hee disappeared on the day of the trial, and no one knew where she was. In the end, because he couldn't prove ownership of the cell phone, Mayor Choi was not only declared innocent in court, but he even arrogantly walked up to my ho's group and started laughing smugly. In front of Chang Ho, "You seem to be unable to wait for that time already. Please take care of your health." This statement became the knife that cut off the last ray of hope. She immediately collapsed, because she had always wanted to see her husband bring the evildoer to justice. Now that the last bit of hope had vanished, she couldn't hold on any longer and collapsed right there. After waking up, my ho looked at Chang Ho and reluctantly spoke her last words, "I love you." Chang Ho looked at the woman who didn't dare to eat or wear nice things in order to send him to college. The woman who took on everything to get him out of prison and never gave up. He smiled and said the words he owed her countless times, "I love you, my ho." Finally, under Chang Ho's warm gaze, my host smiled and slowly closed her eyes. A few days later, Mayor Choi was still leisurely scuba diving when Chang Ho suddenly strode in. This was their first meeting since the trial, but that sinister smile of Mayor Choi's hadn't changed at all. He even asked, "Did my Ho's funeral go smoothly?" But, to his surprise, as soon as Chang Ho heard this sentence, he let out a sigh. "Thanks to you, I had a guilty conscience, but now I don't anymore." These words confused Mayor Choi. But then he started to feel nauseous and directly vomited dark blood. And Chang Ho calmly told him, "As the person who created the radioactive waste, shouldn't you taste it yourself?" Hearing this, the mayor immediately realized that he had made Chang Ho the real big mouth. All sorts of evil and guilt seemed to bow down and submit